Good to see you again.
All right, I'd like to call our Finance and Audit meeting for April 3rd, 2025 to order at 8:30 a.m. We have all members present except for John and Eric. We have minutes for approval. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Brian? Carolyn? Are you raising your hand?
I am. I think there was something on there that needed to be corrected, but it's fine. We'll just go with it if it needs to be corrected.
Okay.
I can't find anything right now.
Any other concerns? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have public comment. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to comment? Great. Member comments?
Even better.
No? Okay.
Through this.
New business. So we have board of review interviews today. We have Rebekkah and Wayne. Thank you for coming. Is it okay with you two if we interview at the same time? So we're just going to alternate questions back and forth. Do you have any issues with that?
Fine. Sounds great.
Okay. That will help us a little bit. So we were given by Alex your resumes and some questions that he thought would be pertinent for your interviews. Naturally, members, if you have any questions that you would like to ask outside of those, happy to have those questions asked also. So Alex has confirmed that both Rebekkah and Wayne are meet all of the criteria and standards that are required in order to have this position. So there's a lot of state certifications that y'all have to go through. They're both qualified, and I feel, after looking at the resumes, very highly qualified for the position. So I want to thank you both for coming. It's not rare, but it's not as often as I would perhaps hope that we would get very highly qualified people for positions. And so it makes our job easier in the sense that good people are give us comfort level in what we're doing. Makes our job a little bit harder when you have really good qualified people. So that being said, does any committee members have any thoughts or concerns about? Yes.
I have no concerns at all. I agree with you absolutely that you all are, overqualified for this position, frankly, but at the same time, your background and your experience are exceptional. So I want to thank you for your interest in public service in this manner. So I appreciate your strong interest in this. One of the things that we hear about a lot as we're out there and elected representatives is the question about taxes, and people, normal, ordinary, everyday people out there don't truly understand the process, the procedures, the assessments, how assessments are determined, etc. They get that in the mail routinely once a year about your property assessment, and from that point then they start to ask questions and worry a little bit, if you will, especially as you get the tax bill. So you all are now applying for the board of review. I know, Wayne, you've kind of been involved in a way already. And so what do you see the role of this board in helping to educate the community, helping to understand? It's not just a decision body. It is, but it's not just a decision body. I think it's also important to educate. So how do you see your role in education?
We'll start with Wayne first, and then we'll bounce back and forth.
Okay, I think you're definitely right that people do not understand when they get the notice in the mail and their property values go up, and they think automatically the taxes are going to go up, and they don't understand levy, and they don't understand the value of the property. When we get people in there, they get overwhelmed by the forms, because actually they're at a disadvantage. Okay, because the assessor has all the properties in their database. Okay, and they know how to pick out comparables, and they know how to value the property. People don't do that. They don't have that. I'm an appraiser, so I actually get more than the assessors get, because I have the MLS. Okay, so I could access that and find out pictures of the inside, the quality of construction. Okay, now, the thing is, I applied for this job to try, I know you're computerizing everything. When I first started doing appraisals and coming here, I think in 2007 or 8, okay, we had papers, and now we're all computerizing all the records. So I want to try to figure out a way in here to make it easier for the people. I know you have on the website, you tell them exactly what to do, but sometimes the more information you put down there, the more they get confused. Okay, so I want to try to help them out a little bit more so they understand the process and they have a more fair chance of protesting their taxes. Is that pretty much?
Absolutely, thank you.
I think that is a great idea. And also, it is very true that property owners, I think, are very intimidated by the process of filing a complaint and even understanding the assessment process. I've working for an attorney's office that dealt with tax bill, I had the opportunity to talk with folks very regularly in regards to that, and actually drafted a lot of documentation to be able to provide to people. At the assessor's office, we held property tax appeal workshops, and also I was able to prepare educational material like a slideshow that explained more about the assessment process, the levy, the different moving parts, and that time frame also. And I do think that providing educational material can be wonderful, especially online now where folks can access it. I also think that it's very critical that folks are dealt with in a very respectful way. I feel like they're already oftentimes so upset in regards to the assessment process and feeling overwhelmed. I do think that helping them to feel like you are a person who is very invested in careful decision making is important to the process as well as the educational component.
Thank you. Can I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
2 more questions. The first question following is, what happens if you have somebody that is kind of unconsolable in a way about this? You all make a decision as the board, right? And how do you communicate to them next steps? What if? What's the next thing to do?
Oh, we do, I guess the way I've seen it done most of the time is you tell them if you don't agree with the board on the values, you always have to write the appeal. Okay, so they can appeal to PTAB if they wish. And then we explain it to them that they can change their method of appeal. If they want to go from assessments to market, they could do that. Okay, I don't know how often it's done because I'm an alternate, so I don't know how many times they avail themselves. They might say they want to when they're in the room, and they may very well change their mind, and never follow up on it. So, I mean, that's pretty much, you could just inform them and tell them. And then I think you give them some kind of idea that if they go to PTAB, that even if they win, it may not be for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Okay, and then, they'll be entitled to, I guess, interest or whatever if they do win. But in the meantime, they'll be in limbo. Every year when they file the taxes, they'll based on what they're doing at PTAB. So you explain it to them as nicely as you can. I think most people are just basically scared, and the ones that come in there that really protest now, they're hurting. The property taxes are astronomical. When I moved out here in 1980, my taxes were $1,700. Okay, now they're over $8,000. And I really can't see the difference. I mean, we had good schools back then, we had good fire department, everything was the same. It seemed like the county grew and the taxes, the levies kept on going up, but the services for me stayed pretty much the same. So I think a lot of people are like that.
Thank you.
Well, at the risk of repeating things that Wayne talked about, all good information, I do think that it is good for folks to sometimes realize when they filed a complaint, if some of their information that they provided didn't conform to the standards, that the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board would normally consider. It's good to inform them about those differences. Sometimes folks are unaware of the types of resources that they can use to search. At the McHenry Township Assessor's Office, where I've been for the last little over 3 years, we will actually, complete a search of comparable properties for property owners, provide them with a larger list that they can then choose from. So that is something that folks who maybe are not providing the best sorts of information at the county level can then improve the quality of their complaint for the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board. Luckily, I don't think they're as behind as they used to be. They've caught up quite a bit now. But in busy times, absolutely, it can be even a 3-year-long process for folks, which can seem very frustrating for people. Also, obtaining an appraisal is something that folks can do to improve the likelihood of success at the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board. So there are other pieces of information that they can benefit from, I think, that the Board of Review can provide.
Can I just add that I think you need more coordination with the assessors. I was in one case recently where it was a well-educated man. He sat down there, he read everything that he needed to do. He came in there and he wanted to go market, so he brought comparables in. Okay, so he had it within the time frame and everything that was outlined for him. When the assessor gave his information, he pulled comparables from 2 or 3 years back. Okay, so they want us to, what the assessor gave wasn't in line with what he outlined, what the appellant should do when they come in there. So I think you have to get with the assessors a little bit more and tell them the evidence that they give has to be in line, because that one person felt really, like he was taken advantage of, because the evidence was produced that, was outside the range of what he thought he had to do.
Okay, last question that I have is, go ahead.
Can we flip?
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah,
going to
that's what I was
say
gonna
that.
say.
I was just going to say that. That's absolutely right.
Rebekkah, we'll start with you. This is my last question. So, this is kind of a challenging, a little bit of, difficult situation sometimes going in, and people are a little bit frightened, but they can be a little bit, argumentative or aggressive in their presentation and those types of things. I don't think that's all the time, but certainly there's that thing. So why on earth, and this is more of a personal thing, why on earth do you want to do this? I mean, what is the passion inside you that draws you to this? We all have the same thing, what's the passion inside us that brings us to these elected positions, put ourselves out there and that type of thing? What is it for you?
Well, I have to admit that I love the 15-minute hearing time frame. That is exciting to me. I love, you are getting so much information in regards to the property, and you're really pulling from many sources, all at once, to try to come up with the most accurate, decision in regards to an assessed value that you can. That I think is exciting. I do enjoy talking with people about the assessment process. It's a large part of my job at the McHenry Township Assessor's Office, and I do enjoy I enjoy when folks say, wow, I never understood the process before. And they, they're very gracious in regards to wanting to learn usually. Some folks are too frustrated, but a lot of folks are very excited to learn. I do enjoy that as well. But in my heart, I love numbers, and I do love real estate. I did not go back, farther and on my resume because it didn't seem appropriate, but I actually started off in construction. When I was very young, I worked for a builder, even, in the summertime between high school and college, Kennedy Home Builders, both in the office and as a trim laborer. I love residential construction. My dad was a general contractor, and I had the opportunity to work with him when I was in high school and build our home. So I started off having an interest in residential real estate. I actually then worked for a utility contractor on the West Coast, which was very interesting. I dabbled outside of my, when I worked for the attorney for many years, in my evenings and weekends, I did a rehab and I also was able to be a title company closer at the attorney's office for her closings there. I just have been doing a lot in real estate for a long time, and I do really enjoy it, and I enjoy understanding. I enjoy learning about it. Commercial now is the most fun for me. The township assessor has really allowed me to pursue that in terms of my education. When I was obtaining my CIAO, the Certified Illinois Assessing Officer designation. So being able to focus on income producing methodology for me has been very exciting. And getting to work with the school intervener, I know that doesn't maybe excite everyone, but I really do enjoy learning the statutes and how they apply and all of those types of things that make other people, have nightmares.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wayne.
Okay. Obviously, I'm a certified residential appraiser, so I've been doing this since the '90s. So my dedication and why I do it and stayed that long is kind of pretty obvious. But when it gets to the board of review, I like to use my knowledge as an appraiser to help people out. I've had cases where people come in there and they read the forms, they pull in the comps, and they don't know what it all entails. So I had one person that lived on a busy street, okay, and obviously his home wasn't worth as much as everybody else's, but it's nowhere on the forms. Okay, do you live on a busy street, or what's the area, is there a gas station next to you? So I get to use my experience and kind of bring up little things. Do you live on a busy street? And they go, oh yeah, I used to see all the traffic there. So I could guide them into ways where we could legally, according to the law, give them the deduction they need that's really not in the paperwork. Okay, so that's pretty much why I did it. I've been doing it for a long time. And I think I got every weird appraisal in McHenry County. Somebody just gave me a barndominium. Now try appraising or assessing one of those things.
Sure.
So that's about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, other members? Larry?
Sure. And I know we were trying to alternate this, but I got a question for Rebekkah.
That's okay, she gets to go twice first.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
First twice or whatever, yeah.
Do you live in McHenry County?
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I see you're a Lake County Board of Review member now.
That is true.
How did that come about?
The chairman of the Lake County Board of Review reached out to me. You know, they're able to see who has taken that Board of Review test. So he reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in becoming an alternate. I let him know that I worked for the McHenry Township Assessor's Office, and that position wouldn't allow me time to be able to act as an alternate for Lake County. At that time, the township assessor was running for a state representative position, and you know, unfortunately, when positions change, there's no way of knowing what will occur. I also let him know that I was, you know, hoping for a Board of Review position in McHenry County in the future, and he indicated that they were happy because of my experience to have me appointed as an alternate Board of Review member, even if I didn't have the opportunity in my schedule to act at that time, in the hopes that that would change in the future and that I would be able to serve them.
Okay, so would you resign as the Lake County alternate Board of Review and to do this, or do you have time in your job schedule now?
So it depends annually on when the hearing schedules for the two counties occur. It is oftentimes the case that Board of Review members work in both counties. And in fact, that chairman of the Lake County Board of Review actually acted as an alternate recently this season in McHenry County. So that is something that's commonly done, but it is the schedules that really dictate whether or not that would be a possibility. In the past, Lake County started and finished much earlier than McHenry.
So as an alternate for the Lake County Board of Review, how many meetings have you attended?
I have attended none. I was appointed for one this last year only. I attended their orientation.
Okay, and Wayne, as an alternate from McHenry County, how many meetings?
I think I came right after the last market depression, somewhere around 2008.
How many meetings have you?
What?
How many meetings have you attended? You're on the McHenry County Board of Review as an alternate, right?
Okay.
Am I not explaining that? So are you currently on the McHenry County
Yes, ma'am.
as an alternate?
Right.
And how many meetings have you attended as an alternate?
They don't use, okay, on the Board of Review, I come in as an alternate whenever they need me. Okay, if the caseload gets heavy, whatever have you. Generally, recently, with the market the way it is for the last couple of years, it's been like maybe 3 to 5 days a year coming in here. Is that pretty much? When it first started and you had paperwork and the market dropped and everybody was in here, then it'd be like 4 days, you know, a week. And it's generally, by the time they get to the alternates, it's, we don't do the counties like Richmond and Burton, okay, or we'll get some McHenry, but they usually bring us when it gets heavier, when we get down to Crystal Lake, is that, you know, and Algonquin and everything. If there's more complaints at the end of the season, then we usually come in.
Okay, thank you.
But you know, I am a full-time appraiser and I still get orders. So my schedule is actually flexible. You know, so if they need me in, yeah, I have to accept the orders. I'm my own boss, so I could come in almost about any time.
Okay.
I'm sorry, if I may
Go ahead,
add
sure.
some additional information. So when I worked for Laura Morgodic PC in McHenry at the attorney's office, I was the person who was responsible for preparing the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board complaints. And that is similar to what a Board of Review person would do for state level complaints. It's almost exactly the same type of documentation that you would be providing. And in my years there, between 2008 and 2019, I did over 1,000 of the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board complaints.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other members?
I have a follow-up. Can you explain more? You used the reference to income producing methodology. Can you explain more about what that is?
Certainly. So it's a traditionally accepted method of valuation of a commercial property to take into account the income stream and expenses and analyze that in, there's just really structured ways to analyze that information to produce a suggested value of the property rather than utilizing like a market analysis of comparable sales. So oftentimes with commercial properties, it would make sense to look at the income methodology as well as a market methodology to see if you can reconcile between the two to come up with an accurate number.
Thank you.
Certainly.
So, Wayne, I'll start with you first. So, you hear appeals, and in your head, you know that any change that you make on that appeal impacts the rest of the taxpayers. So how do you weigh between an individual's right for an appeal and their specific property versus the overall taxpayer situation, knowing that that money goes somewhere else? It's not like it disappears.
It gets distributed among the other people.
Right, right.
Okay, but, boy, I don't know. What I really want to say is property taxes in the state they shouldn't have it on personal property. I'm of the agreement that I believe that, how do you put it? We all own homes and we all pay taxes. Okay, but it's almost like it's the statute and that's the way the law is set up in Illinois. Okay, and you follow the law. But ideally, I don't think people that own it as their primary residence should have to pay property taxes. I think they should get the revenues from some other place. Because you have elderly people that could be taxed out of their home and, and they're not really paying for the schools. Okay, so I know things shift, but your answer is, it's in my mind all the time that these people don't realize it. But if we give them a break, or if we gave them what they wanted and it turned out to be true and different from the assessors, that means the rest of that levy would be distributed among the other people. Okay, so, but the thing is, you have to be fair. If you look at it right down to the basic, the assessor says their home's worth so much money, and I'm there to make sure I think, and the other person with me, that the assessor's right. If the assessor's wrong, just because it's redistributed isn't anything I did. It's just that that appellant had the wrong value on his property. So that's basically the way I look at it.
Okay, Rebekkah.
Yeah, I will echo Wayne on that one as well. It's, clear that a Board of Review member is to, be an impartial and accurate judge in regards to the assessment of a property. The resulting distribution of that assessment among the various property owners within a taxing body is, can be an unfortunate byproduct or a fortunate byproduct. However you look at it, unfortunately, that opinion, it really isn't, my personal opinion in regards to that really doesn't have a place in regards to that process. An impartial and accurate decision is the important role of a member of the Board of Review.
So let me ask a similar question. So and Rebekkah, you get to go first this time. So you're at the board of review and you see, pick a number, 10 homes in a particular subdivision that are coming before you. And after reviewing those 10 homes, you're like, wow, this subdivision is really overvalued, meaning that you're constantly, on those 10 cases, you're taking the homeowner's value and using that because the assessor has overvalued. What do you do at that point?
Well, that is definitely a type of situation where communication among the 3 board members would be really critical. It is communicating with the township assessor is something that has occurred in the past in those types of situations, which sometimes have occurred. And there have been circumstances where the subdivision has been assessed after the fact with changes, with certificate of errors, I believe. That is something that has occurred. I believe that it hasn't been often that the Board of Review has decided to change a subdivision en masse like that after the appeal season has begun, but I have heard of it occurring. So it would take some very careful deliberation in terms of making that choice. And I would have to see the information to make it.
Wayne?
Okay, I'd like to find 10 comparables in the same subdivision nowadays. I think that might be a good thing. But if I'm in a hearing and the appellant comes over there with an overvalued property, okay, what I do is, at that point, I don't think about the assessor. It's by getting with him and trying to change his records at that point. At that point, I'm acting as a judge. Okay, I'm to hear the evidence that the appellant gives and that the assessor gives, and I make my recommendation that way. Okay, so when I'm there in the room, that's what I do. If it's overvalued, I look at their other properties and I bring their property back in line to everybody else's, so it's normal. Now, the assessor could talk during the time, I could ask him questions in the appellant. You know, so hopefully at the end, when we make our decisions, both the assessor at that point and the appellant realize how we came to the decision. Okay, so they know it's up board, it's up front, you know, and they got a fair hearing is pretty much it. The assessor, if he's a good assessor, he'll take this money and he'll reevaluate himself, you know, unless it's habitual. And then I don't think it's my place to talk to him. I think it's the head of the assessment division to go and talk to the township assessors, you know, and tell them they need to keep their records more accurate.
Okay. Other members, other questions?
Asking them all, so I'm pretty good.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Thank you.
No, thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you both for coming in, I appreciate it. So process is we will, we make a recommendation to the chairman, who then can, usually, I would think the chairman would take our recommendation and then pass it on to the full board for approval. So, you know, we'll make a recommendation today to the chairman. The chairman will then put on for the board meeting, which is in 2 weeks and a half, basically. And then once it is approved by the full board, then you would, you know, whoever was recommended would then be codified and chosen.
Mike,
Yes,
I apologize. There was one question.
go ahead.
And I everyone did a great job of covering everything on here. There was one, and so Rebekkah, I'll start with you. And this was, what are some of the challenges you think the Board of Review faces, and how would you approach addressing them?
I have felt that in the past, educational material has not been necessarily provided through the Board of Review. There are Board of Review rules, but I have thought that some additional educational materials could be helpful in helping to inform the public and make people feel more empowered in that process. I feel like that is a struggle. When folks sit down at the table for their hearing, when I worked for the attorney's office and was going to hearings, it was a different circumstance because I was already familiar. But now that I've been at the assessor's office and I've been able to have more contact with property owners, I'm able to see that oftentimes much of that 15 minutes is spent with the property owner sometimes explaining things that aren't necessarily germane to the decision, and the Board of Review kind of explaining more about the process. It's an awful lot of time lost considering that the entire assessment, the Board of Review can take time outside of that 15 minutes to, absorb the complaint information, of course, but the time with the property owner is only a 15-minute time frame. And I feel like some time is lost there that maybe could be made up through other sources that are available online that could help. That's been what I feel is a struggle for the Board of Reviews, seeing hearings with property owners. I feel like that is a challenge.
Thank you.
Okay. When it comes to education for the property owners, I really thought about that, and the thing is that
my question is, just to make sure, is what are some of the challenges you think the Board of Review faces, and how would you approach addressing them?
Okay,
so it does
challenges.
Not have to be the same
Okay.
thing.
One of the challenges, I guess, the way it's set up is there's 15 minutes to have people do the appeal. And it's supposed to be 5 minutes for the appellant, 5 minutes for the assessor. And we're supposed to analyze and everything in 5 minutes. Well, when it comes down to when the appellant's talking, we really can't be working the numbers and listening to them at the same time, okay? And I really, and when the assessor's talking, the assessor usually just says, here's my sheet of paper. So we're looking at a sheet of paper. The 15 minutes is really a short period of time when you get in there, because a lot of things can happen, okay? So I think that's a challenge, but in the past what we did do is we look at them beforehand. They make the appeals available to us on the board, and the night before we run through them, just to double check and everything on our own, quiet, so we have an idea of what's going on there. Because 5 minutes at the end is really a short, for me, it's a short period of time to make a decision when you're listening to the appellant, and then the assessor says, okay, I got this sheet, and it's a graph over there, and by the time you look at everything, it takes up too much time too. So if I had to help out, I think in McHenry County, we should pretty much go the way Lake County did. Okay, Lake County has one website for all their property information. I started when I had to fax everybody over there, I said appraiser, and get the information back, but they put it like in one area. So the assessment office over here would have all the property, all the square footages, everything together. Now, if they did that, they could kind of keep the forms similar and easier to read, because right now every assessor has their own forms. So when you get into Board of Review, you'll have this form from this one, you'll have that form for that one. They're really not that consistent. And some places, some townships they're catching up. I think they're almost all on computers now. But just a few years ago, they had index cards. So I would probably try to computerize it more, make it more centralized. Okay, so when you, that for the Board of Review would have that information standard, so it'd take up less time when you're doing the appeals kind of thing. And then some of the forms, you know, just make it more computerized so it'd be easier to work on. Right now, it's too varied with each township giving you the information.
Thank you.
Did you get?
No, it's okay. I think things are being answered as we go, so I think I'm okay.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you both. I appreciate you coming in. Again, I thank you for wanting to serve and be a part of this. Again, very impressed with both of you, so I don't look forward to our deliberation, but you know, whoever's chosen, I wish you the best, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are on to 5.3 then.
Question.
Yes, sir.
This is a little bit different format than I've seen in the past where we have a 5-4 resolution to fill a name in. Is that a new idea that we're going with?
I don't know that there's actually a resolution per se. I asked Pete about this. We're technically making a recommendation to Chairman Bueller, who will then make a recommendation to the full board.
Yeah, I just was curious why that was there like that. I hadn't seen it before.
Well, we haven't had a board of review interview since I've been on the county board, so I don't.
I mean, we do ZBA stuff and PED and just haven't seen it this way is all.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't answer that.
It's not make or break today. I just was curious.
The last time we did a board of review interview, I think was 2014, and for the formal chair. And at that point, the decision was made to interview in April and appoint in May. In my conversation with Chairman Scala, said let's see if we can't just come to an agreement right away in April. So this is how Kathy and I presented it.
Okay, I just hadn't seen that resolution line before when we did interviews, but that's fine.
And last time it had its own resolution. So when we get to the resolution after the deliberation, we would need to amend it to include a name.
So, yeah, I guess Kathy, you're helping me answer the question. Normally, when we make appointments, they just, after the interview process, they just go on to the appointment list on the county board agenda. These positions are a little bit more significant. They are paying positions, so we wanted it to stand out, so.
Okay, thank you.
So last time there was a resolution, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay,
I didn't know that, so,
And this one mirrors it quite closely.
okay,
no, I think it's fine. It makes it more official.
all right. All right, so is there any particular rhyme or reason how you want to do the deliberation?
Acknowledge that it's going to be difficult. You're so well qualified.
Flip a coin.
Okay.
Do we have other individuals that currently serve that might be coming to the end of their interests or tenure?
26 is the next one. There's 3 members, right? And then they have a bunch of alternates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Do you want
6.
Alex to come up here to help out at all?
Sure.
Well, no, I'm kidding. Yes, that would be better than me trying to explain it.
I think
But
we
they're coming up
may
next
have-
year. They're coming up again next
May
year.
have a position coming up in the next year or so.
Yeah.
Right?
There's always a possibility.
There is a party affiliation that's necessary in this position.
There's a what?
Okay, I'm sorry, what was the question?
I
We currently
think-
have three board members. Obviously, Sharon Bagby is retiring at the end of May.
But then, as you look to the future, is there an expected
Michael.
retirement?
There is a possibility of another retirement.
Well, we have a term
But we're
ending.
also not sure when that would be.
Okay, but wouldn't these terms on here on the website show when their term ends and they would have to reapply? Or do they just or do they have to retire in order to come off? You got Michael
Michael Rebekkah and
and Clifton are both for May of 2026.
Correct. And then Sharon's was due, her terms ends this year, so they're offset. So they're both due to be reappointed every, in the following year, because they're 2-year appointments, I believe.
Carolyn, to your question,
Yes.
in recent years, because these positions do term out.
Right.
The chief county assessor has come to visit with the chairman and say, yes, I think this person should be reappointed, and that's how it's been acting. That's why we have.
You haven't seen them,
Right.
right? Okay, that's
Right.
what it is.
Yeah, it's just been a reappointment process in most cases.
So back to my question, I just want
Yeah,
to
so-
confirm that there are individuals that are coming up to the end of their term in this following year. And is there a possibility or likelihood that one of those will retire?
I can't answer that, only because I know that Clifton has talked and showed his interest in being around for a little while longer. So, I mean, age-wise, he is retirement age.
Okay.
But he has shown some reinvigoration with some of the things that we're doing right now. So I can't honestly say if he's ready to retire, even next year or at the end of his next term. So I can't give you an honest answer as to it's possible that one of the board members could retire in the next year. But with the reinvigoration that I see and the joy that he has for doing this and our interactions, I can't say that he will.
Well, I'm going to say that, you're being very altruistic, I think, here, frankly. I mean, I think you've done a remarkable job, and you've helped to educate people to a high degree, and I appreciate that very much. And so I think your leadership has probably been part of the reason that there's some reinvigoration there, if you will. So I think we need to recognize that and show our appreciation to them. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I think both individuals are highly qualified, and if you look at traditional approaches, and this is not always easy, but you look at traditional approaches. I mean, Wayne is an alternate right now. It appears that it might be appropriate for us to appoint Wayne, and then that leaves an alternate position, I guess, open, does it not?
Yes.
And then we could name Rebekkah in the alternate position here.
Well, my assumption would be that she would continue working at the township in which she wouldn't be able to serve as an alternate.
Okay. All right.
Wait a minute. She's working for the township and she wouldn't be able to be an alternate?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, because if something comes from the township, she can't represent herself and represent.
It's conflict of interest.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But she would need to vacate that position in order to come to the board of review.
So she wouldn't stay on, if she gets this
No.
position, she wouldn't stay with the
And
township?
she's prepared to do that?
She is
Did I
prepared to
get
do that, we
Okay.
made sure.
Okay. Good, good.
No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess as long as I'm going.
Yeah.
A little unfair, maybe putting you on the spot, but you haven't worked with Rebekkah, but you've worked with Wayne. Is there any issue with Wayne's attendance, how he interacts with the other members?
No.
Okay, that's fair. That's all.
So who are the other two that are currently staying on then?
Michael Grebenik
Okay.
and Clifton Houghton.
Okay. All right. What were you gonna say, Carol?
I don't know, I guess I think when I was, because traditionally we would do something like that. Somebody would move out of the alternate into the full-time and then the other person would move in. But I feel like this is, because I was actually thinking that might be a possibility before walking in. But I think that clearly that's not the case with this particular board, just because of the fact that she would have to leave. It's not like our ZBA where there's only a couple of alternates and they get a lot of opportunity to participate. You've got 6 alternates here, and I don't know how often they're called in.
The alternate, because of where we're at in the assessments values right now, where market values are, the alternates have been They've been minimal. I mean, we haven't needed to use them a lot. I wanted to make sure that this year we did use them a little bit more, which is one of the reasons why we actually added through a resolution, a couple of that, some alternates. So, I want to make sure I answer your question.
No, you did.
Okay.
You did,
okay.
and, yeah, and because my point, I think that if we suggest she take the alternate, my guess is she's not doing this. And she's not doing it because she wouldn't really leave McHenry Township to take on an alternate position. Probably.
No, correct.
Okay.
So you're right. So if you're if the thinking is
Correct.
training and, having, getting somebody ready for when somebody does retire, that it's unusual in that this instance doesn't really lend itself to that. Because again, she wouldn't leave her current position in order to be an alternate because that is a very sparse employment right now. So we're not using a lot of alternates. So no, it's not one of those things where you're putting somebody in waiting.
Because I think they're both very qualified. I like Rebekkah's approach in some ways in terms of just staying very neutral in terms of anything, but focusing on the assessment itself and walking people through. I mean, she made the point of her opinion really about what's going. Her opinion is left out of it. I think she would bring a lot of value to this board, I guess. And if she would not be available as an alternate, I think we would gain a lot by having her on as a member.
Go ahead, Terry.
So is there a possibility that Wayne would stay on as an alternate if he was not selected?
I believe he would.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe he enjoys it.
Okay. I liked what Wayne had experienced with Lake County and talking about standardizing the process so that what I was hearing was that in each of the situations, they're not looking at apples and apples, even from situation to situation. Maybe people are presented in different formats with different information and versus with Lake County being more standardized and computerized. And not that Lake County, I have no idea if that's a good format, but I like that thinking. And so let's take that idea, period. It doesn't have to stay with Wayne. The things that impressed me about Rebekkah was her professionalism and presentation beforehand and during the question period. They both, again, are very astute and intelligent and experienced. And what I heard from both of them is that they're very concerned about what is going on in the markets, the amount of the taxes, the impact on individuals. And so if there is a mistake, to get it corrected and to apply things equally and just. I would feel great with either one of them. My tendency leans towards Rebekkah.
Okay. Go ahead, Larry.
I guess, as Dr. Sager said, the alternate is typically, historically, the person that would move forward. And I think there's probably some expectations on Wayne's part that is how that would happen. Not that it's necessary that that's the way it happens, but I do think that's an expectation that he probably has.
Go ahead.
One of the things in hiring, and that's actually what we're kind of doing right now, is recommending someone for hiring. You find individuals that rise to the top in terms of their capacity, their experience, their ability to communicate in the interview process and I think both of these individuals are highly qualified and have done an exceptional job in that regard. So then you come down to perhaps what is the most subjective part, and that is the fit. How do they fit within the team of individuals that are there, that are working, that are doing the job? What do they bring to the table that is an addition to that, I guess. So I know this is unfair, but I'm going to ask you if you have an opinion with regards to fit in the current team, the current grouping, and you.
Okay, I do. I think both would be really well received by our current board of review. They would absolutely both be, absolutely. The enthusiasm with which Rebekkah approaches things, I think, would be more in line with what I view the future of education moving forward overall, because that enthusiasm she has is very comparable to mine. Not saying Wayne doesn't have it, I'm just saying that from where we're at, I think Rebekkah has that drive to want to improve and help and interact and do things that I think would be mesh and bring the board to an even higher level of professionalism.
I appreciate very much your forthrightness in that question. Thank you.
Carolyn?
So I wanted to add to that, because what I really appreciated about what she did was, talked about there's 15 minutes to get something done. She said a lot in a very little time. When she spoke, she thought very clearly about what she wanted to say. She did it with as, I don't know that she was trying to do it with as few words as possible, but she added clarity without a lot of extra stuff. And I felt like she was able to get to the point. And that, and I'm not saying that Wayne wasn't able to do that. I just mean, I just appreciated that. I think that's very valuable, especially in a field, in an area which is already so complicated for people. I just felt like she had a great way of just explaining it so that she got the point across and very easily. And I just appreciated that approach. So again, both would be great, but I do feel that she brings that to the table.
Anyone else have thoughts or comments?
Is Eric on?
I have no idea.
Oh.
I am. Oh,
Whispering.
you have any thoughts? I don't know when you came on, Eric, so.
Can you vote him in also to join us?
Probably around 9:50 something.
Okay, are you, so I didn't know you were here, so we have to make a motion to approve Eric to join the meeting. Brian?
Second.
And Larry seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. What'd you say, Eric?
I'm about to walk into the building now, so I was gonna say you could save the time, but that's fine.
Okay, well. Do you have any comments while you're walking in the building?
No, not really. I thought, at least since I've been on for the last 30-ish minutes, I thought both did a really good job. I appreciate what Larry said, that there's probably an expectation that the alternate is eventually going to move into the first spot. But I thought both were well. I don't think we can vote wrong.
Okay.
So, you want to make a motion to move
No,
somebody
we're
forward?
still deliberating.
Okay.
My only assessment was, I felt that when Rebekkah spoke about the questions that I had asked, it was very kind of matter-of-factly, this is what happens, this is the decision-making that we have, you know? And really, that's what that job entails. It's not a, I don't want to say a bleeding heart, but I mean, it's not an emotional decision. It's really looking at data, looking at numbers, and deciding, you know, is the assessor correct, or is the homeowner correct, or business owner correct, or is it somewhere in between? Because they can go in between. It's not an all or nothing type situation. And so I felt like the analytical side of what she talked about, and it was just kind of matter-of-factly, this is what it is. Where, you know, when Wayne kind of answered it, it's like, you know, I felt there was more emotion involved in that thought process. Like, I really want to help out the homeowner / business owner, because of their high property taxes, the words that, he used and everything. And I kind of feel like, not that that's not appropriate, but that's not the outcome that we're looking for from those individuals. So that was kind of my take on the answer to those questions. Any other, go ahead.
I agree with you, absolutely. I think that when Rebekkah spoke, she talked about being fair and impartial, and judging those things is kind of an objective position in this type of role. And I think that they have to look at the numbers, they have to make decisions based upon fact, and they have to be able to present that and to argue that, and then stand by that in a vote or a decision. And so I think that it is objective, and we need to veer away from subjective to the extent we possibly can. And I heard that from Rebekkah.
Okay. Any other deliberation?
I appreciate compassion. And I think both of them still offer compassion in those objective decisions. But I do think Rebekkah did a great job with that.
All right, are we ending deliberation? Okay. So then we'll go on to 5.4, which is the resolution. So can we just make one motion that has the name inserted into the resolution, or do you really want an amendment?
Well, the resolution is printed as is, so you would amend it to include that name.
I know, but can we just make that amendment with the motion? Is that okay with you? Okay. All right. So again, I don't think we have a wrong decision that we can make. I guess my inkling would be to appoint Rebekkah, but I'm open to other thoughts.
Well, may I make a motion to amend the resolution for Rebekkah Burtcher?
Sure. So there's a motion.
Second.
And Carolyn seconds. Any discussion about that motion? No? Okay, well then, Eric, are you okay with voting? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll go to vote then. Brian?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, motion carries. Would you be willing to inform both candidates? Is that okay?
Yep, I will do that.
Okay.
That we're having a board review meeting today, so they're probably downstairs starting to party anyway, so.
Okay.
And I hope that, Wayne will retain his position as,
Yes,
yeah.
please.
Okay, I will convey that.
Let him know it's a very difficult decision.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks,
assessor
Alex.
party, what does that mean?
Okay, we're on to item 6, which is routine consent agenda. Are there items that members would like removed? I would like to remove 6.4 and 6.6. Are there others? Once, twice? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve items 6, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. Terry? And Brian makes that second. We'll go to vote then. Carolyn?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Eric? Yes. Brian?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries. All right, we're on to item 6.4 then. I'll entertain a motion to approve item 6.4. Brian? Is there a second? Larry seconds that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I pulled this, so just for committee's information, I was at a meeting where Chairman Bueller was at, Mark Picos, Pete was there, from the city of Marengo, Derek was there, the past mayor, well, I guess he's not passed yet, but the outgoing mayor was there, and their legal counsel was present. Oh, and Scott Hartman was there. Am I missing anyone else?
That was it.
Okay, so this discussion took place regarding this agreement and the resolution. I had initially had some concerns over what was present prior to that meeting, which you can see in the red line version. And so there was a healthy discussion regarding it. And this was the version that you have here is kind of what I'll say the attorney Brandy came up with. And I don't, Derek, I don't know if you had.
I participated in it too,
In our state's attorney's office.
Okay, so that's what they came up with to try and resolve what my concern, which, you know, kind of focused around originally it was an open-ended payment schedule, and my concern that I brought forward had to reflect upon, you know, we already made a loan to Marengo for the interchange, which is open-ended and doesn't have any repayment terms associated with it. And I brought up to the group that I had an issue with that, and that I wasn't willing to have an open-ended loan sitting out there again. So this is kind of what they came up with. You know, we're kind of, the county and the city of Marengo are kind of in a tough spot because, you know, you don't want to let the dollars go to waste that, you know, have been earmarked for the further completion of the water sewer program. But the city of Marengo doesn't have the funds in order to do the match part, which is what this is revolving around. And the last piece of this is this chunk of money, both ours and the grant money, doesn't complete what they need to get all the way to the tollway, but it completes another section of it. And perhaps you could talk real quick about, you know, the different segments and how that would play into, you know, how things are working.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you very much on behalf of the city of Marengo for the partnership in this. It's, I mean, it really is going to be an economic engine for all of us, for the county and for the city of Marengo once it's completed, so I appreciate that. Yeah, so phase one, which I'll just use landmarks, I guess. Phase one is the construction of the water sewer utilities to basically Unilock, which is about halfway down on Route 23. That's currently underway. They actually started clearing trees in the right-of-way for this week, last weekend actually, and this week they continue. And then the letting is the end of April for it, with construction potential, well, the schedule for construction is to be in October, the end of phase one, October. So this is phase two of that project, which basically gets the utilities from Unilock down to Anthony Road. And then phase three would be the development of water tower and water line on Anthony, and then the construction of the utilities the rest of the way down. I don't have exact dimensions in terms of how far it is, but if you look on a map, you can see it. You may have one in your packet, but basically from Anthony to the interchange. So phase one is underway. Phase two, what I would assume then, with these funds, we can get that part of it done next year, and doing in the meantime, identifying the funding to finish it off down to the interchange.
One of the thought processes is finding that funding to get down from Anthony Road down to the interchange may be easier when we start to see all the activity. You know, when a developer sees that this is really coming. You know, and if you are that big developer that we're all hoping for, that last stretch from Anthony down to 90 is not an impossible task. You know, that's something that they might want to fund themselves for a project, and maybe just have some recapture or something like that. So it starts to get a lot more viable when we get down to it. And I think we've already seen that in some of the contact we've had the ComEd, and they're expressing a little bit more interest in saying, this is starting to be real. Go ahead, Brian.
First off, I truly appreciate the approach of partnership because I do agree that this is important economic development, not just for Marengo, but for the county at large. And so I appreciate that. I think it has all kinds of opportunities, and I think it's going to be a significant economic impact. I do appreciate the fact that there was oversight and that you didn't want to do kind of an open-ended type of thing, as we have previously agreed to. I also agree that this is a necessary thing to get to make the match, to be able to get the additional funds, which are really, really important. So I kind of agree with that large sphere of things. I do have one question and then a concern I'm going to raise. The question is, what is your annual budget in Marengo right now?
So, wow, you're hitting me right up. 2 months there, and I get answers for you. So our general fund budget is $5 million, and with water sewer, it's $7 million total. That being said, and I'm not making any excuses or any of that stuff, but just to further round out that discussion, out of the $5 million general fund budget, $1 million of that goes to police pension fund every year, which is a significant chunk of that money. And obviously we have normal general general fund capital improvement needs in the community. All of our roads are basically Fs on a scale of A to F, with significant underground water, sewer, maintenance and replacement issues. So it's not just resurfacing, but there's water sewer issues under that also. And along with normal general fund maintenance and replacement needs of the community. And then obviously the water sewer fund on top of that.
Thank you. As I looked at this, and I'm trying to do this from memory, I tried to just look it up, but I couldn't find it again. You have a 1.29 million in reserve or something like that, is that correct?
About, yes, yeah, in the general fund.
Right.
Yeah.
So my real question is, what do you see the impact? I mean, right now the program is set up, as discussed by you all, 10% for 10 years, correct?
Incorrect.
No, that's not it.
Yeah, so
It's incorrect?
Yeah, and this got a little confusing because we have this installment note in your packet twice. I apologize for that. With the second version, the clean version is really what we want to consider. When we first approached this, to Mike's concerns about an open-ended nature, we approached it with a note not to exceed 10 years with payments not less than $75,000 a year. That gets you to $750,000. Mercosio, kind of in what Derek's saying with only a $5 million budget, was a little bit concerned about a commitment of $75,000 a year.
That's my concern.
Right. So the alternative that we developed in this meeting was, let's not commit any current money to this project. Let's commit 10% of all the new money that comes in. It's coming to the county until this debt is paid.
Okay.
Not less than 10% of all the new money every year that comes in.
Okay, I think that's a much, much, much more reasonable approach, and I appreciate your clarification on that, because I was very concerned about the level of the budget and your capacity to be able to say that.
I'm going to apologize again because Larry and I talked on the phone a little bit. We had a few versions of this document and 3 different attorneys and 2 different administrators.
That's your problem.
Right there.
So there was, I think, a couple of legacy references to term yet that maybe Derek and I didn't get out.
Okay, so now you're looking at 10% of the generated revenue as
Every year.
Every year. And I think that's much, much, much more palatable. So thank you for that clarification. The second thing I want to make sure that I understand then is that if the repayments would be as soon as an occupancy is provided, so there will be a payment right there, or there will be a payment within that fiscal reporting year.
Not less than 1 year. Right.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm much.
Not more than 1 year. Not more than 1 year
Right.
since the date of that item.
Right, within that year. That, right.
Less.
And I'm absolutely comfortable with that. That clarifies my previous concerns about the realities, I think, of repayment capacity. So thank you.
And it was important for the city of Marengo in our discussions at the council level, and by the way, it was unanimous support by the city council for this partnership, that we hold ourselves accountable from a repayment standpoint of having a mechanism to make those payments. And that's where the percentages came from on the new development out there, to be able to just know right off the bat that this amount every year at a minimum is going to go to the county. Our goal is to pay y'all back as soon as we can, but that's going to be based on how fast the development happens out there, which my personal opinion is it's going to happen sooner than later, but we wanted to hold ourselves accountable with a mechanism in place.
Well, you had me at y'all.
I know that. I didn't say all y'all. I'm just
Okay, Terry?
Wait, Larry goes first.
Larry,
since he's home.
that's fine.
Oh, okay, I don't care. Well, I read through this, and as Peter said, I talked to him yesterday. I don't think it's correct for the 0%. And the way it reads is 0% through the date of maturity, and there's no date of maturity in this agreement that I can see. Am I reading something wrong?
And I think that's an example of language that was legacy from the earlier documents.
Okay.
There's no term.
Well, I don't think it should be 0%. I think we should get some money on ours. We're putting it out there. I don't see that we should just do it at 0% for any amount of time. And I think there should be, tie it to the treasury, 10-year treasury note, whatever, if you want to change the interest rates at different times. I don't think that 10% is adequate from the new business that goes in there. I think it could be 10% on the first one, 20% on the second one, and 30% from thereafter. I mean, this could drag out for 10, 15 years. And I don't think the county should have their money sitting down there for that long. Once again, not an attorney, but I think it should say the borrower shall use the $750 for the 20% match, not intends to. When you go to the back page, and it talks about the agreement being recorded against the properties on Route 23. I don't think we, as a county, have any right to put a lien on those properties. It would have to come in somewhere, being in the connection agreement, that if they want to get, this business wants to get connected, they would have to agree to us having a lien on that property. And it's some legalities, but otherwise we don't have any collateral. Unless somebody can tell me different. I mean, if we're going to give them, if it's an installment note, there should be collateral. And there should be a way to make sure it gets paid back. And there should be a maturity date. I probably have more notes. But those are some of my concerns, and I think we need to get a vehicle to get paid back. And I agree that Marengo isn't in the position to pay us any money on a guaranteed basis out of their general fund. It can come from future monies. But it needs to be a higher percentage of that future monies, so there's some reality that we're going to get our money paid back. Otherwise, I see this dragging out for years. So that's what I got, and I'd be looking forward. There's other things. If we give them the $750, where does that go right off the bat? Who gets the interest? Well, before it gets used. There's a lot of technical stuff. I don't think they should just get the $750 and be able to bank it and take the interest off it. That should come back to us. And even with the higher percentage rates of the new businesses, they're still getting new tax money in without a lot of investment. We're putting $750 in. The grant is, how much is the grant?
$3 million.
$3 million. And you're going to be getting a significant amount of tax money back to the city of Marengo, even if we go with the higher percentages. For what you have invested in it, compared to what we have invested in it. That's it.
Okay. Do you want to try and address some of those concerns first, or just?
There's not Larry's entitled to those opinions. I'm not going to argue with Larry's positions. This is not what I would consider a good deal for the county. This is a benevolent deal for the county. You know, we want this to succeed. Coming out of the meeting that we had down there, it was understood that we were extending our dollars to help this project go. It's not intended to be a deal where the county makes money off of interest. At least that was not the intention at the time. That is not a reflection that somehow Larry's position is wrong. It's just this is a reflection of the meeting that we had.
But if we don't make money on interest off it, we're losing money.
It's discounted.
So, okay, I'll stay.
So first of all, I want to echo Brian's comments on acknowledging the work that went into it and thanking everybody. And then I also want to echo everything that Larry said. You were absolutely right on point, and great minds think alike. So no, we don't loan it at a discounted rate. And we don't have to do prime rate. If I were, or when I do benevolently loan money, then I take what interest I could earn on a short-term cash account, which I'm not sure right now, 3.8 to 4.5%, and then that would be the interest rate. And that is very benevolent when any loan right now would be at 7.5. And I'm probably low, I don't know. And we're not talking credit cards. So yes, it does have to have an interest rate with it. It's not a discounted, because the county is not a benevolent charity. We are absolutely in an economic pursuit of what's best for our county, and that is helping Marengo get this situation. But we also are wise with the tax dollars for which we have responsibility. So with the changes that Larry proposed about the language and the repayment on the terms, I very much agree with that. That hurts no one because it's coming from future revenues. And then a reasonable, modest interest rate, again, on what we could get for cash deposits, and I would say not below 3.8%. That's my input.
Anyone else?
So the 750,000 is coming from ARPA interest.
General fund, it reserves. Yeah. We're at about 6.5 months right now.
I thought I read something in here about it being part of the company. We're kind of looking at it as coming from interest that we have earned on the ARPA dollars.
It could.
It hasn't been designated, it's just coming out of the
Just coming
general
out of the
fund.
fund. Okay,
Right.
I'm not sure. I thought I read that something. Okay.
Are you gonna go ahead, Brian?
I think that as a county, we have a large degree of interest in overall economic development of the county itself. And that's one of the things that we all believe is important. Growth is going to help to keep property taxes down by spreading things out in terms of new business and new residents. And I think that that is an important part of the economic cycle. We look at roadway improvements, we look at public utility improvements, we look at rail yard improvements, as in Woodstock, as investments in our collective future. And so I don't think that our intent should ever be to raise money on this. I understand that there's a concern about, quote unquote, losing some money, predominantly losing the interest capacity that we might have if that money that we had is just drawing interest in an account. But I think we're putting that money to work for a very real investment in our larger community and its economic development. And I think that that's what our responsibility is. So I'm not in favor of the interest context at all. I find this is a different animal. I think it is an animal that's similar to other investments that we make as a county to other entities, whether it is distributing funds to, mental health board to be distributed out or whatever it is. I think that, that's the type of thing that we do. I do agree with Larry that we probably need to see an accelerated repayment in terms of percentage of funds generated. And so I don't see any problem with that at all. I think maybe we should be looking at perhaps over a period of 5 years. We go 10, 15, 20, 25, and then we carry that 25 onward as a cap. I would be in favor of that. I do think that that is appropriate and will help to generate the repayment.
Eric, you haven't said anything yet? I'll give you a chance.
I agree with Larry. I thought a lot of the points he made were good. I also somehow agree with Brian, even though he conflicts with Larry, in that it is a little different, I think, than just like a straight up some sort of business transaction loan. We're trying to develop the economy in general in McHenry County. It happens to be Marengo in this instance. We're not necessarily simply a bank trying to get squeeze some sort of financial ROI other than the economic benefits from the new business that'll be generated. I like the idea of some sort of accelerated payment. If we do interest, I'm not opposed to that, especially if it's how the rest of the committee or the county board is going, but I wouldn't say necessarily, 7.5% or 8%. I don't think that would be the intended purpose. If we were gonna do an interest rate, I think something along the lines of, 3% now, not beginning at the maturity date. But that's just my opinion. I can go either way, either with or without the changes. I don't think necessarily that as it is, it's a bad deal in light of the fact that we are doing this to try to develop the economy in general, the broader McHenry County, Marengo, most specifically. And I guess that's a long way of saying I agree with everybody.
Can I add to that?
Huh?
Can I add to that? That's okay.
Well, were you gonna?
No, so, all I was gonna say in regards to the interest rate and or the higher percentage of repayment methodology is, one's gonna cancel out the other one. I don't know how else to say it, but if in regards to a percentage rate on $750,000,
Right.
I agree that we shouldn't have that in the bank. Like, don't cut us a check and I'm gonna take it and put it in the bank today and we're gonna gain interest on that.
That's what we did.
We have to show the match, to the state, and then how that works out in terms of when the project starts and the funding is actually transmitted and how that money is paid out. I don't wanna sit and make interest on that. I'd rather spend it to put the pipes in the ground and have the project done. So to me, the percentage rate on the loan doesn't make sense if we're going to a higher percentage rate. And I'm not agreeing to this either. I'm just saying, I'm trying to think it through. If we're going to a higher percentage of how the money is paid back, because if you go to 15% with the money being paid back, then isn't that the same as having interest on $750,000? It could be both, I suppose, but then you're increasing the amount of money that this county is getting out of the project. I guess with all of that, my having worked for the city of McHenry for 12 years and the city of Woodstock for 14 years and now the city of Marengo for just a couple of months, I look at this as an opportunity from a broader economic development perspective. I would hope that the end result of this project, with the pipes in the ground, is that it's an economic engine for this county, being the only interchange that's actually in McHenry County. That it's an economic engine for this entire county for a very long time. And that it's not solely a benefit to the city of Marengo. Sure, it's our water and sewer system that is the mechanism that allows this to happen, I guess. That's where the water is gonna come from and the sanitary is gonna go to be treated. It just happens to be our system, and we happen to be the nearest municipality to make that happen. But I guess I would almost ask the question, if the city of Marengo weren't a part of the equation and the county had the opportunity to do this to generate economic development along that corridor, would it spend the money would it spend $750,000 to get $3 million to make those utilities go closer to that interchange? Forget the city of Marengo. I mean, I know that right now we're just the pass through for that money to be able to make the extension happen. And so that's why I look at it more of the partnership, or just using, even forget that word. We're just the, again, mechanism to allow it to happen, because we're the ones that's getting the $3 million. So I guess I would just leave it at that I don't see it at all as, I'm here with hat in hand and on behalf of the city of Marengo to ask you for $750,000 for something that's only going to benefit the city of Marengo. I look at it as, look, this is a chance that we can all work together, that the county can loan out or front $750,000 of a business deal to be able to leverage $3 million to get utilities closer to 90, that we're all going to be able to benefit from at some point in the future.
And I agree with that. But normally I'd be much more skeptical of something like this, but I viewed it the exact same way. If that was unincorporated McHenry County, would we be jumping around to do it? I think probably yes, we would. So I think that's why I'm agreeing with everybody too.
I was like, Carolyn was first.
Although, I'm sorry, but I am concerned about, how quickly this does wind up happening. I would like to see some sort of assurance or safety net that not necessarily, we want to make sure we get our money back in X amount of period, with interest, but I am looking for progress on it. And I know right now it's kind of open-ended in that regard. So that would be one thing I would like to see changed if we can figure something out.
I forgot one thing too, I'm sorry, that you spurred my memory on this, is it's tough we can't really run a pro forma on it. I mean, it's tough because we're basing our 10% of property sales and or video gaming revenues on whatever develops down there, but we have no idea what's going to develop. So I can't tell you what 10% of those are. I can't tell you what 50% of those are. I can't tell you what 100% of those are. It's, there's a number that we put on paper as a mechanism to repay the loan or the fronting of the money or whatever you want to call it to the county. So, that number is kind of vague, the percentage based on whatever's built. I mean, again, our goal is to not have that on the books because I think we're all in agreement. The faster things develop, the faster that we all make money out of it from a revenue standpoint, and the faster that money is repaid back to the county coffers.
Do you know, I know the $750,000 is to bring, in a grant of, I assume another $3 million. So, do you know, or do you have rough ideas? It's to fund the extension of the water and the sewer lines, right? But do you know what the cost, like the annual cost of maintenance is going to be?
No. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Sorry.
No,
good question. I probably could get it, but I don't have it.
Okay.
I'd be lying if I gave you a number.
Okay, Carolyn?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so I think that your summary was very well done, and I think it gets to, and you're talking about a little bit too, it's a $750,000 investment that we will get back to bring $3 million for water sewer to an area that's gonna grow. And not only will we get 10% every year as repayment, but we'll get our own taxes back from that development as well. So it is an investment. If we don't, they can't afford it, we lose $3 million investment in the county. That's kind of the way I look at it. We're gonna get paid back. I don't know how you accelerate it until we see or find out how quickly the development is going to come.
Well, I mean, you could accelerate it, right, without, at least in my simple mind, without any risk to the city, just by upping that percentage.
Right.
Like, instead of 10%, you could up it to 15, 20, 100, whatever it is, but, you know, because essentially what we're doing is we're forwarding money to bring in development. I think everybody agrees that's a good thing, right? But if you did want to accelerate it, you could just say, we're gonna have 25% of, you know, the new property, video gaming tax, whatever, paid into this. Marengo still has the benefit at that point of pocketing the 75%.
Yeah, no, I understand how it works. I mean,
No, but that's how you would accelerate
Right,
it.
no, I understand that.
Without
I understand
any
that.
real financial risk, in my opinion, to the city. It's an option, I'm not even saying I favor it, I'm just, we could do it that way.
Okay, we'll go Terry, and then Larry, and then myself.
And I want to be added.
Okay, you can come after me then.
Okay, so I want to make sure that I understand the proposition. We put in this to 750,000, and then you have access to 3 million, so the total is 3.75 million.
That's right.
Okay, so 750,000 of 3.75 million is 20% that we would be funding. And so we're only asking for 10% back on the payment, and that has a time frame. So we don't infinitely get the 10% back, only until the 750,000 or whatever the value of the note would be. If we compounded, and forget payments, but just to help us grasp this, if we compounded that interest over 10 years at 3.8%, which you could get on any business savings account right now, that would be $339,017.35 in interest. If it were at, you said 6.8 is what the county's receiving on cash amounts?
No,
What are we getting right now in cash amounts?
I believe I said our fund balance right now is 6.5 months.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. What are we getting on our cash right now?
High fours.
Oh, okay, so it's just about. So we have, you know, in addition to the 750,000, we are forfeiting half of that amount in interest. And that's, so we're not talking about making money, we're talking about staying even.
Well, plus
with what we have.
inflation too, like eats
Well,
away at
I mean,
the
we're
value
just-
of it, but yeah.
Just trying to keep it simple. And so that's what I'm saying, is that a minimum interest amount on the value of that money. You know, another way to look at it is if we are going in as investors on this at 20%, that we infinitely get 20% back on it. I mean, we helped build it by that amount, and that's not being greedy, that's being fiscally responsible. We have to look at it this way. We are dealing with other people's money. It's not, you know, our investment that I'm just going to give a gift without interest. So that's actually the valuation and the impact. So I think that, you know, what Larry has proposed, and however we get the payment back, whether it's the 10% over the time, but a comparative interest amount to what we're receiving, and I offered 3.8 because I believe that is the lowest cash value in a business savings account right now on interest, would be a very modest amount, and then also be covering the actual costs of loaning the money. That actually cost us something to loan the money, so.
Okay. Larry's next.
Okay, I didn't in any way ever mean that we shouldn't do this. I mean, we all agree. Let's figure out how to get this done. Just trying to make it a little bit more palatable on this side for where the money's going and how it's going to be returned to us. And as you said, there's no way to figure out when those businesses are coming or when they aren't coming. I think what I proposed can be negotiated. You have to start somewhere. When I'm working with the client and we're doing a note, sorry about that. You start somewhere and you work to the middle if you have to. So that's where I hope we can, we're gonna get this done somehow, the way I see it. A few of the technical parts that I talked about a little bit before that need to be ironed out is, how is the collateral gonna work? If it says in here we're gonna put a lien on property, what's the legal aspect of that? Can we do that? Or does the city of Marengo have to do that for us? The maturity date, somewhere along the line, a note needs a maturity date. I think there should be something in here about what happens if you don't get the grant. We all assume that you will.
You will. Well, it's already been earmarked, so it's,
Okay.
you're gonna get it.
In fact, there's gonna be a deadline one of these days, right? We gotta get this done.
And that deadline, and Peter and I talked about this a little bit, are these some of the details that we need to table this for a month and get worked out? Have another meeting with the chairman, with you guys?
Yeah, I don't know what that date is for DCEO. I know they're anxious to get the rest of our paperwork to be able to execute the $3 million, but we can ask what their deadline is for commitment and submittal of all funding, match sources and all that. I don't know that answer.
Okay. There's too many things here to amend it and vote on it today, in my opinion. I wouldn't vote it. If I go to vote on this today, it's gonna be a no. So how we do that is up in the air, whether we table this for a month and get that ironed out, or if you wanna move forward with it, my vote will be no.
Anything else?
No, I'm running out of voice.
Okay. So I have three things written down here. I think we need to be realistic about the time frame that something would even start to happen. So, you're looking at, and I'm gonna kind of use best case scenario here, You're not looking at getting water, sewer out to Anthony Road realistically for 3 years.
Probably, right. Well, the phase 2 probably be done end of 26 into 27, so sure 2.5.
Okay, so
Yeah, it could
2.5,
be.
3 years.
Worst case, you said worst case,
Yeah,
right? 3
so for 2 seconds, let's make an assumption that, XYZ company is anxious to build on a piece of property that isn't even down at the toll road, because that's not where the water and sewer is. It's somewhere further up 23, and they're willing to take that spot, whatever that spot is. They're gonna build whatever they're gonna build. And again, let's just say that's on an expedited schedule, and that's 1.5 years, 2 years to build something. Then they give you you're gonna give them an occupancy permit, and that starts our clock for the 1 year. So realistic, we're not gonna see a dime, best case scenario, for at least 5 years, could be 6 years or 7 years. Any scenario that you come up with, we're not gonna see anything.
No argument.
So, the thought, and I'm just laying this out here, so the thought of charging interest is gonna be accruing since day one, and it's gonna be accruing on the full 750 plus whatever interest is, because it's just gonna compound there. I don't know how realistic that is, I'm pointing it out. I think the other side of that is, I have a concern. Derek said that they're gonna be out for phase 1 letting in, you said April?
Right.
So like this month?
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't know where those bids are gonna come in at. And my concern was that those bids may be higher than what the engineering estimates were. And that could put a monkey wrench into all of this also.
It's the construction time period. I said letting, but It's the construction's gonna start.
So has it already
This has
been?
been lit.
Yeah, it's been lit, I'm sorry.
There was
Okay.
there's a significant chunk that'll get done by the end of October.
Right, I'm sorry about that if I said letting, I meant property, the project, construction.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's already been let, you already have a fixed cost
Yes,
associated
right.
with that. Okay, that's
My
better,
mistake.
that's,
Sorry.
helps me out. So that's gives me more comfort at least, so I at least know that that construction is gonna get to where it's gonna get to, and then this will, go out further. And then my last thing, which I did bring up at the meeting, is I'll call it the marketing piece of the property. And, to me, I feel like the city has to be willing to put some of their $5 million towards that marketing side of the piece of property. There was a discussion brought up about MCEDC doing the marketing, and I made it very clear that MCEDC doesn't work solely for the city of Marengo, that we're not their exclusive marketing piece. MCEDC is there for the entire county and will, for all practical purposes, help Marengo as much as possible, like they have already, but they're not their employee, they're not their exclusive marketing piece. And I think that's a commitment by the new village president and trustees that they're gonna have to make out of their budget at some point.
The enterprise zone group is acknowledging that as well.
Yeah, that's another component of it, right? So, whether we change that 10% give back or not, I think we can talk about that, but ultimately, the other dollars that are gonna be going back to Marengo are critical for Marengo to be able to make that work, in the sense that they now have to provide all of the services that the city of Marengo provides all the way 6 miles further down the road, and that doesn't come cheap either, their police force now has to go all the way down there and provide services, So I think it's a situation where we have to be realistic in what our expectations are and be fair, but also be fiscally responsible to all of the taxpayers of the county, because again, we represent the whole county and not just Marengo. So that was my 3 things that I was gonna bring up. Brian's next.
Thank you. I feel incredibly strongly that this is a partnership. It's a partnership between certainly the entities of the county and the city, but also the people. And I think that we need to acknowledge that economic growth and development is going to be returned to the residents of the populations and the businesses in a variety of different ways. We're going to have improved access and transportation. We're going to have, and that means transportation of goods and services from the Marengo area. We're going to have increased benefit to the taxpayers because the property tax base is going to be broadened, which is hugely important, as we all know, to keeping property taxes in balance. We're also going to have an influx, I think, of visitors to the area, which is going to help with our gas tax and everything else. So I just think that there are huge benefits that are derived to all of us as a result of this economic development in the Marengo area, just like I think that happens with the city of Woodstock or Crystal Lake or Algonquin or wherever it is. Economic development is hugely important. I see that as a major responsibility. I do not intend, nor do I want to see income generated off of the $750,000 other than exactly that. The investment that we're making is going to provide us with income in terms of the development itself. I can understand the imports, absolutely, I can understand the import of of making a logical, progressive interest payment, not interest payment, but repayment is what I'm talking about, of the loan itself, to be able to kind of get that in a shorter time frame. But I think you're right, this is going to be a long-term process. So I think we need to be realistic about that. If the 10% level across the board is acceptable, that's fine. But I have no problems with going like 8% for 2 years, 10% for 2 years, 12.5% for 2 years, and then 15% as a cap. Something in that area negotiated so that we can see this repayment taking place as appropriate. But I have no interest in collateral. Collateral is the development. This development is going to happen. That's our collateral. That's the investment in our county. That's what's going to repay our residents. And so that is the collateral, no interest. I won't support those things. So I just feel strongly that we have a responsibility in this to encourage economic growth and development, and it's going to be returned to us. So that's my position.
I think interest is already included in this agreement though, isn't it? 3% after the date of maturity? No?
No,
As if
that
they
was an
miss
old
it.
version.
It's the old version.
Okay.
If it got beyond 10 years, that's what, then interest was gonna kick in.
So that's the maturity date's 10 years?
No, it's no
There's no
maturity
maturity
date.
date.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
still
This is
an
if
old.
they miss a payment on, every year a payment is, once taxes are, the way I'm reading it is once taxes are generated, the payment is due annually.
On
If
the
you don't-
anniversary of whenever that building
Right.
permit was issued.
Okay, and
Or
then
occupancy
anything
permit, sorry.
after that, if they don't pay on that 1 year anniversary, it starts in at a 3% interest
Exactly.
until they pay it.
And that's okay.
So that's, and there, that's what that is about.
That's a security point.
Hold on a sec. So can I ask a semantics question? You need for your paperwork for DECO, a resolution stating that the county will match those dollars.
I think we just have to show that they're gonna be matched. I don't know where that match.
In the application, we put in a letter that said we would do
Correct.
this.
Yes.
Okay.
So my question is did the funds actually have to be transferred day one?
I was thinking the same, we could have Carrie sit on them until they're needed.
Well, and I guess that's my point. My point is we don't, if we sign whatever agreement looks like, we don't actually have to give them the physical money until you have construction costs associated with those dollars. So we could theoretically sit on that dollars for 2-3 years until that actually is needed and happens. So we would be, going to the question that
We'd be
Terry
collecting
brought up, we'd
interest.
collect the interest on it still until we actually gave them the money where they actually were paying contractors to do the work. So it would limit our exposure, I
think that's
guess.
fine, but it should be laid out.
And that's fine.
Paperwork.
I'm,
There's nothing about that.
okay, I hear you. I get it. I'm just asking that question.
And they could use it at the end of it, at the end of the $3,750,000 rather than the beginning.
Well, and again, they don't know, until they open bids, they won't know what the true cost is, so. Okay, go ahead, Larry.
Well, I found another one of my notes, but to your point about the payments being on the date of occupancy, why wouldn't it be more in gear with the date that they collect their taxes from that business?
It's,
I mean, they're not,
But that's gonna be a year later than it's developed, right?
well, but that's the idea, giving them the year, right? So that they get a tax season in there.
We wanna know what 10%, we don't want 10% of the first month, we want 10% of the first year.
But at the anniversary of it was gonna be on the occupancy permit.
I think that,
It's not.
Where,
it's not, that's not exactly how it reads. I think it says the borrower will repay lender annual amount equal to 10% of the sales tax generated. So you wouldn't know that until a year's worth of taxes have been paid. And
Okay.
once that first year of taxes are paid, that's when we would get our 10%.
Right.
And that becomes the,
that becomes the payment date, not the.
Property tax, sales tax, and a video gaming tax.
On the additional
Okay.
increase, right?
On that specific property.
But only the additional from when the agreement's entered. So like if they're collecting, I'm making it up, but if they're collecting $1 million, then they're collecting $2 million after this agreement signed. we'd get 10% of the additional 1 million.
No, I
on
read this
property
as
that's
all 2
generated.
million.
It's only on the
It's-
property that's generated from
I
this.
mean, it's farmland right now, right? So it's not getting jacked for property taxes anyway, so for discussion
Well,
purposes.
it says at least 10% generated by any commercial properties developed after the date of this agreement.
Right, there is no commercial properties down there now.
Right.
And just to be clear, because I know this question came up, it's every commercial property, not just the first one, but every.
Right, yeah,
Everyone that generated
that,
in it.
I'd have an issue if it was just the first one.
Me too.
Plus you'll never get paid off.
Take us forever.
Might take us a minute.
So the payment anniversary is fine, however it works out, it'll be there at some point.
Right.
I agree.
The other thing that I think needs to be addressed is if Marengo's gonna give any tax rebates to these companies of any sort. If you give a tax rebate, you don't collect it, our 10% all of a sudden is zip. How's that gonna work?
Rebates, don't you usually collect it and then rebate it?
Yeah, depends on what it is, whether it's sales.
Or incentive, maybe I should have said incentives.
But it could be on property tax abatements, or it could be on sales tax rebates, either one of those, right?
Yeah,
Is the question.
so how does, I mean, and I'm not saying I disagree, I'm just saying there's nothing addressing that in here.
Yeah, well, we have to know, Marengo's gonna have to know if they do that it's gonna affect the amount of money that we're able to pay back to the county. Yeah, so.
Well, because they collect it and then they give the money. It's like what we do at the county here. When we give a rebate, they pay the full amount and then we cut them a check back.
Okay, and that would be the same as if they gave them some incentives?
That's the way we do our property tax
Well,
rebate.
I'm just saying for these purposes here, property tax, sales tax, or video gaming tax, any incentive they were to give on those three, it does get collected 100%, and then Marengo has to go back and give them the money back. They
So we can still be
We still
paid
get the
on the
10%.
collection.
We're still getting paid on the
We
collection,
get the
right?
10% on the total.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I would say.
Okay, great, thank you.
good point.
Well, okay, so I guess here's the question for you. We can take a vote on what's here, and if it fails, you're gonna go back to the drawing board. Or we can table it and say, we need to go back to the drawing board, create something different, which again is gonna have to go through your city council also to be approved, whatever that is. And then work something else out and bring it forward at a future point in time.
I mean, this is something I would like to discuss further, but I also don't want, if there are imminent deadlines where pushing it off 1 month blows, I don't want to do that either. If we just push it to next month, is this a fatal issue or anything?
Did we get an answer from DECO?
I'll be right back. I'm gonna make a call.
Okay.
I don't know.
We were supposed to talk to DECO and find out if they had a drop dead date that they had to have
Okay.
the information, and I don't know that we got that answer yet.
So this may be a silly question. Can we pass it and say, we approve this, details to follow?
No.
No, I don't feel comfortable.
Marengo has signed this agreement.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So if we make alterations, I'm expecting that we're going to
Oh,
have
it's
to at
changing.
least have a side letter approved by likely a new city council.
Oh, that's right.
Maybe they'll have time yet this month, perhaps.
Could I ask if there is, could I ask if there is an interest in altering the 10%?
The
Is there
rate of
any-
repayment.
To 20%?
The rate of repayment, the 10%?
If you're looking for my answer, yes.
20%? Because that's what our portion is.
Well, I'm interested in doing a progressive thing, because as things develop, I think we should be able to see a little bit slightly higher repayment rate. So, I think Larry made that point, and I agree with that point. I think that that's a logical thing to do. Now, from a planning stability perspective, it's easier for the municipality to say 10%, I think, but at the same time, if we started at, and again, this is just my mind thinking, if we started at first 2 years after, right, this is after the building, the occupancy permits are and the subsequent taxes. We started those first 2 years at 8%, the next 2 years at 10%, then 12.5%, and then 15% from that point forward with a cap of 15%. That gives us some degree of shortened, I think, time frame or guaranteed shorter time frame for repayment.
Well, I wouldn't go below 10 to start
Right.
with, but that's, you
And I
know.
wouldn't have
Okay.
thought above 20.
And, well, and the
because
other,
that's
and the other thing is, again, this is only on the new, I guess, tax revenue that's generated.
Right.
So,
By definition.
so I don't think capping it, I mean, I'm well aware that every percentage we're throwing out is somewhat arbitrary, but it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, we could go 50% and they're still not in a worse off position, you know?
Yeah, but
I'm not saying 50%, I'm just using that as like a more extreme example. Why cap at 15%?
well, I think the point is that there is a shared revenue here, right? And so the shared revenue is the repayment to the county, but it's also revenue which is being derived by Marengo, and what we hope is that Marengo is going to be able to use it to continue this economic development engine, right, or effort that is going to be moving forward. So I don't think we want to necessarily.
So you're saying you want them to have more money so they
Right.
can reinvest in
Exactly.
further
I don't think that we
development.
want to pillage money from this, and it's not our intent, you know.
Well, plus the other thing is they've got to provide services now, once these
Right.
things start to come in, and if we hamstring them in that regard, I mean, it's in addition to getting our money back, we're gonna be getting the new tax revenues that we would get from the development straight to us. And so I think that's important, we don't wanna be jeopardizing that, either. So if you don't wanna go below 10, that's fine, we could start at 10 and graduate up from there. But I would cap it at some point, maybe not 15, maybe, I don't know if it needs to be higher than 15, but
Okay, I mean, I'm not trying to be a finicky person about this, but the
Yes,
property
you
tax,
are.
the property tax revenue, our real benefit to that is we now have a larger EAV to which to spread it over. We don't really get revenue from that because it's in the city of Marengo.
We get 8%.
Well,
we could probably tax from that.
We do. And the other thing,
I mean, as I told Larry, you know, one of the projects that went in that is going in on Irene Road, the giant Walmart distributing center, they looked hard at this property, and Mayor Cozio could not guarantee that we get the water sewer down there fast enough, so he couldn't make that agreement. But if something like that comes soon, I think this discussion it's over. Right. You know, they're gonna wanna pay this off.
That'd be great.
Yep.
How long was that intersection there before that Walmart project went?
I don't know.
Yeah, 20 years?
Your position isn't wrong, it's your position, right? But there is we got a responsibility.
I agree.
Need to try to make this happen.
I agree, and I think there's some room for some flexibility on how to make this work. I agree with Chairman Scala, 10% would be the minimum that I'd like to see. If I'm gonna throw numbers out there, and I don't know to base it on a yearly basis or on the first business and then the second business, but 10, 15, and 20. And then maybe, 10 in the first business, moves to 15 when there's 2 businesses, moves to 20 when there's 3 businesses, and then it stays at 20. That kind of number.
Dying of curiosity, what did you find out?
I called the state, our grant manager, to see if I could get a time frame for when all of our I's needed to be dotted, and she didn't answer, so I just asked her to call me back as soon as she could to see if there was a date.
Could we just continue this to next month's meeting, and then if in the interim it turns out there's some deadline, we can just call a special meeting for the exact same day of either the cow or the same day, same time, maybe 5 minutes early or something, and just handle it at that point.
Perhaps. I mean, I would think in the next week and a half, I can get attorneys to write a different agreement.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, and then just 5 minutes before.
We can get that done. I don't know that I can get, I can get that to the committee of the whole perhaps, right? I mean, I could do that in a week. We still have to have the city of Marengo.
Yeah, but even, again, they passed this, we didn't. I mean, we could pass something and they have it's in their court then to pass it or not pass it. I mean, I'm not saying they have to pass something before we pass it. I think we can flip it over and be like, here, this is the agreement that we're willing to pass and.
Okay. Can I just say one thing though,
Yeah.
to answer with Larry? I don't think I would tie it to the number of businesses. I think that would get really, really complicated. I would tie it to years. And if we're starting at 10, it's 10 for whatever number of years, and it goes up to 15, because giving them time to get the services and give them the money they need to make this work, give them a few years at 10%, then you move it and say, okay, fine, 15%, and give them that a few more years, and then we go to 20, because now we're more established, the companies are coming in, but not by company, because I think once they start to come in, it'll be complicated. And I don't think that just because the second one comes in, that makes it any easier for them to start bumping up the repayment. So just giving them the time. But that's really, in terms of what I would see with this, is that would be maybe the adjustment I would make. Otherwise, I think the agreement is fine as is.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. I think that this needs to be passed today. I think we need to provide them the stability that they need. I think that tying it to the number of units of development is too kind of iffy in terms of the payment. I think we need to do it on a yearly basis, and I'm fine with starting at 10. I have no problem with that. So I think 10, 15, 20, I could say that that's okay, but I think we just need to gradually get there, and I think we need to do that within a 5-year period of time. So I would say the first 2 years 10, the next 3 years at 15, and then from that point out, 20 years. 20%, I mean.
For anything,
20%,
year after
right.
it's paid.
So you're paid off.
Now, can you build an economic case for why we pass on interest? And the interest, I mean, I can find 3% that anybody can walk in and get. So, I mean, it is almost half the value of the loan.
We're not a bank. That's not our purpose.
But we're also not a charity. These
This
are
is not a
taxpayer
charity.
dollars.
This is not a
think-
charity.
But I'm saying, if
Hold on.
you're saying that it's a good, and I'm not even talking, we're not even making money on this, we're covering the actual
I speak-
costs. We would not be making money.
Terry, do you mind? I think the whole point is we're making an investment now and we're going to increase ourselves, right? Whether it's like through spreading out the county portion of the real estate taxes, which, theoretically could be like, an effective reduction for people. There's the motor fuel, there's all the revenue that we'd be generating, like tax revenue, like the motor fuel tax. So I think, I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way, but I think what Brian and some of the other members are saying is we are getting our money back. We're getting the actual principal back at some point from the city of Marengo. And on top of that, now we've increased tax revenue from the other
You
businesses.
could look at it, except that this is a specific event. I mean, it's an actual capital project.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, listen, hear me out. And so if in fact I were doing this with anyone, even, in a gracious manner, and I'm not gonna charge them interest, I'm going to own in perpetuity 20% of it because I put in 20% on my investment. That is an investment.
But would you?
So let's keep our terms straight.
But look at it this way, say Marengo never actually wound up annexing that portion and it was unincorporated.
That's a different scenario.
It is a different scenario, but do you agree that we would probably want to
And they have
invest in this?
100% of that revenue in perpetuity. So I'm saying you guys, we have to look at this from an economic and a business perspective to be accountable. I'm not trying to in any form or fashion be greedy. We have to actually cover the cost of loaning the money. We're not talking about making money on it. But if we're not going to cover the cost, then are we actually investing? Then we get a return on the investment in perpetuity. And nobody wants that. That's not what we're looking for either. So why can't we have a nominal amount that actually covers the cost of the money? And if they think 3% is high, we're not getting that on our government rate, then
There's a bit of a twist in how we've looked at economic development investments.
Yeah.
We have $11 million programmed in the transportation plan to go to the city of Woodstock's Rail Yard project.
Okay.
It's the city of Woodstock's Rail Yard project, but it will have a benefit to the county. And to date, we've made the decision that it's a good, wise investment.
But you say, and you're using the term investment, but we're actually basically giving the money, we're not getting repaid.
Correct.
Okay, so that is different. I mean, if we're gonna gift it, gift it. If we
Well,
want
that,
it in the
that's
ARPA
even more
funds-
altruistic
Right,
than what
right.
we're talking about here, though.
Okay, I mean, are
We've
these?
invested
ARPA
$9
funds?
million in that interchange. Right, the state put in
Okay.
25%. For IDOT, the toll, we put in 50%, we put in 25%. We did it without terms of repayment, just an understanding when things happen down there, the county will benefit.
Yeah. Okay, so,
You want to add that repayment schedule into this?
well, that's just it.
But it was that lack of a repayment schedule, it was kind of driving this. Okay, we don't want to do that again. Let's try and have some formal recapture. 10%,
Oh, are we-
10% of new revenues seemed like what we came up with.
Are we getting back that 9 million, or did we give it the way we gave the 11 million to Woodstock?
We're not.
It wasn't 9 million.
Okay,
but
okay.
We'll get
just
it
put
back indirectly.
Okay, right, okay, I just wanted to make sure, because you were talking about repayment, and
It-
I know,
There's no straight line. It's just, you understand it's
Okay.
coming.
okay, so that's different. It is a different perspective. We're talking about giving a gift that's not really a gift, that we're gonna get paid back. Okay,
All we're essentially forfeiting here is the interest, right, that we could get.
which is half of it.
No, for sure, but, and the inflation value, like, that's our sunk cost. So when you said 3.8% over 10 years, 300, whatever thousand, like, that's essentially what we're giving. Because we're gonna get the principal back, you know, unless Marengo defaults, which I don't think will happen. And then, obviously, we have all those side economic benefits we'd be getting.
Thank you, guys, thank you. Brian and Eric, I appreciate this, hashing through this,
That's fine.
so that you can have a reconciliation in your mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
But I don't know where that leaves us.
It still leaves us with the terms and the,
I think we just need to look at the incremental increase, if we're all
what,
resolved.
there was a couple of language things that you thought should be changed.
Yeah, on the very first page, it should be shall use the money for instead of intends to. I don't know, I lost one of my notes here now. Collateral, it talks about us putting the lien on the properties, and I don't know if that's legally possible.
where's that saying that? By the way, I just have to tell you this, Wind Trust locally, their current government rate for liquid funds is 4.488%. So check what you're getting. Tell Donna.
Larry, where are you seeing the lien?
Site readiness program loan agreement, be like the third page of mine on number 7, paragraph F, for the collateral.
Oh, okay, page what?
Well,
page now?
you know,
Page
just-
what? Page 7?
It says this agreement shall be recorded against all properties along Illinois Route 23 and county routes where proposed full access locations are identified. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
That's F.
But are you on the Regional Site Readiness Program loan? Is that the one is that the document you're on?
Yes.
Okay, and then,
Number 7 is access control and right-of-way management.
Right?
And then
okay,
That was kind of our ask of them, you know, that they follow what the Division of Transportation and the state want in terms of access. They agreed to that.
and that part's fine, just the this agreement shall be recorded against all the properties. What's our vehicle to get that done? I mean, I don't think we can do that as a county. I'm not a lawyer. You know, is there some way that the city of Marengo has to guarantee that gets done?
Well, it'd be the city of Marengo because they're the one that's going to be issuing the permit. And they're saying that, basically this is saying that any development that touches a county road Because if it's state, they gotta go to the state, but if it touches a county road, then they have to come to the county to gain the access from off the county road. Now, if they do it all through state road or city road, then they don't have to come to us.
Okay. What's our collateral for this loan? I thought that was the part about, that this note would be tied to the property somehow. I have,
It's not on the property owner, it's on the city of Marengo. That's who the agreement is. We don't have an agreement or any collateral from the property owners or rights of their property. Our agreement was strictly with the city of Marengo legally, and if they don't repay us, there's clauses in here about how we can get that money back from the city.
I think what he's getting at is you said it's recorded against the property, so are you thinking that there's a lien with that
well, that's
verbiage?
what I read it as, but I could be incorrect.
I think this is applying to the access to the county road, and then they have the proposed full access interchange. And if your property is along a county road and you need access, then this is applying to that, but it's not a lien.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, no liens.
That's what I understand.
So our collateral is,
The good people of Marengo.
okay.
Say
County,
that.
10% of the new money, right?
Say
I do agree that the verbiage change in that first part needs to be made. I think it shall, not intends to, and I would agree with that 100%.
That's up in the very
Right at
beginning.
the very beginning.
It says borrower intends to use the sum of $750,000. So it just say borrower shall use the sum of $750,000.
It's an easy one.
That's an easy, that's
And I think there should be a maturity date. If it's 20 years out, it's 20 years out, whatever, but there should be something on it.
Well, if it's tied to the economic viability of the area, if you think about 2007 and 2008, some of these developments that started prior to the crash are just finishing now. So we're talking, we don't have a way of knowing if something happens that we put a deadline on that they can't meet because the economy has
I
just,
think
something
that's
has
his
happened.
point though, too, right? What if nothing happens and then we just,
No, I understand that, but
Yeah.
the whole point is that this is tied to creating that economic development that, obviously we would want it to go through and work.
Certainly.
But I guess I would be cautious about, just because, that was pretty, but things are coming back now, and these developments are finishing up. And it's under,
So leave it open-ended? If that's the wish, I guess I could live with that. I don't think that's it just is when
or after 20 years, then you bump up the percentage.
when you do a note, there's certain things that are in it, the repayment plan, the collateral,
I think that's
the
fine.
maturity date.
If you want to go to, if you want to do a maturity time, that's fine. I think we can do that, but I would be in favor of having a possible X number of years extension on that. So if you wanted to say 20 years plus a 5-year extension possibility, I think that's
not untypical, that's fine.
right.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
That way we can see what's going on at the time.
Right.
They can make-
Yeah.
So
Perfect, okay.
my question is, what if there's not one development out there in 20 years?
We're all gonna be disappointed,
yeah,
We're all right, exactly.
but it could happen.
I'll
They
look back
pay
at
it
this and be like,
So is this, so how is it?
And you'll be the only one alive.
Let's not become so pessimistic. There's a huge amount of investment
I
being
agree.
made in this.
We're
And
already
so
getting calls, yeah.
let's not, I think we can stir the pot all we want to here, but we're going too far here, in my mind.
Agreed.
I live in pessimism, right?
Huh?
I live.
That's
in
because that's your
pessimism.
job, to be investment.
Well, and I will say, I think I have been hearing about it's almost gonna happen since at least I was in high school.
But now we have
'Cause I grew up there.
3,750,000.
I can tell you, since you were in high school, I had already started working on Route 47 improvements, and I had already started working on the Stock Rail Yard. it's taken that long to get these things even starting to crystallize. That's just the reality
This is how
of
long
this
it
type of
takes.
development.
We've been looking for an exchange since before you were born.
I apologize, but I have to leave by 11. I hope we can vote in before that.
Okay, so I have 3 items that we would want to change language, 4 items actually, sorry. The verbiage up in the beginning with the intends to shall. I have changing the repayment schedule to 10% in year 1 and 2, 15% in years 3 through 5, and 20% in year 5 and thereafter. I have a maturity date of 20 years from the date of the execution of this document with a possible 5-year extension. And then I have a notation that the funds would be released at the time of expense, not at execution of a document.
And I think, so then with the maturity date, right, what we're talking about is if there's zero development, nothing's been repaid, that maturity date, assuming there is no extension, they'd have to lump sum at that point.
Yep.
Right.
So then the 10% essentially just becomes the minimum payment, but whatever's left over on the maturity date gets paid back.
Yep. Is there anything else I'm missing?
Interest rate, but we're not getting there.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of an interest rate. I think there's.
Oh, no, I'm in agreement. But no, I asked for a case and built the
Okay,
case.
well, I'm just answering Larry's
Oh, sorry.
comment. Larry's still in favor of an interest rate, but I think
Oh,
you're,
did they not convince you?
I mean, to be fair, I'm not opposed to an interest rate, I just don't, it's not a high priority for me on this,
Some of the
on
cases
something that I
just
find the
giving
value to
them
be.
I realize this is a good economic driver, there should be money coming back from it for the county, and I hope it all works out fine. So if that's the will of the committee, I can live with it. I mean, it isn't something I'll vote no for if that's not in there.
yes, Brian.
So are you prepared for a motion?
Well, I think personally, I don't know that I'd rather see language hashed out. And then I'm okay with having this come to the committee of the whole and go on new and unfinished business versus us trying to make amendments and then see what language they come up with.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that, we could just continue this, but then Bueller, as chairman, can put whatever he wants on the agenda, so then he can just place it himself, so.
He can put it on new and unfinished business, it just
Right.
simply is, you're given what the parameters by which we'd like this document changed and then move it forward.
Then why can't we say we approve this with the recommended changes to move forward and let it go with that?
If you want to do that, I'm fine,
Okay,
what'd you
that
find
would,
out?
that would be my motion for all that's before us. And basically that includes the commentary that you just stated. So
Okay.
that's my motion.
Okay.
Move this forward with all that is before us.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Before what, did you find out anything?
So DCEO has memorandum of understanding already between, I think Pete referenced between the county and Marengo with the letters of intent and all that stuff that basically shows that somebody is going to provide a match to $3 million at some point.
I did sign that.
There you go. So Pete is going to get his wages garnished.
I think we've solved everything.
Okay.
So they have the document, so, I mean, obviously, we need to work this out, but, you know, they don't need additional information from us. They have an MOU and all the letters and everything. But someone's gonna pay the match amount through the grant at some point.
Got it, okay.
Well, in that case, I'll be a no, respectfully, and, because I would just rather continue it if there's no actual imminent rush, unless I misunderstood everything, just now.
I agree with Eric on that. Let's get the language in front of us.
Yeah. Not spend time.
So it's going to be a tie vote then.
Okay, well, so there's a motion and a second on the floor, ready for what Brian had motioned. I mean, I would normally do a voice vote, but you want me to do a roll call vote, just so we're clear?
Yes.
Okay, so Terry?
No.
Larry?
No.
Brian?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Okay, and I will vote no also, so that would fail. It wouldn't matter either way, because it still fails. So, again, put language together based on the whole discussion we've had. And I'm completely fine, I think the committee's completely fine if this comes as new and unfinished business up to the committee of the whole, and we can look at it, and, you know, I don't think anyone on the committee wants to delay voting on it, but we want to see what y'all come up with first. Okay? And then we can approve, you know, the county board can approve whatever document we approve, and then y'all can take it back to your city council and decide what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this case, right, exactly, that it's best to move forward with you putting together the language you want to see in it to make you comfortable, and then I can go back and pitch it to the city council in Marengo. And I mean, my gut is, having been there 2 months, so I have a lot of insight into council members there. But I think that we can certainly make the argument about the changes in percentages for the recapture or whatever you want to call it, payback. Because that means we're going to be successful, all successful in making money on whatever happens down there, generating revenues from it. So I don't see that as being an issue. I could be wrong, but that's just my gut.
Well, and I would be willing to come to your city council meeting if that would be helpful to try and talk about things. I mean, I
appreciate it. I just appreciate the opportunity to sit here with you to, again, talk about our partnership and how to make this happen. And I mean, that's what the goal is to get it done. So I'm at whatever we need to do to work together to make that happen. I appreciate it.
I think regardless of this vote, this was just kind of to move it forward. Yeah. I think by consensus, we all still want to move this forward.
Yep.
And I think by consensus, we've also kind of outlined what we think we need.
Yep.
And I think that's good. We can move forward then, and I think we're in good shape.
I'm not going to go back and tell the city council Marengo that forget the county, we're not going to work with you guys, or you don't want to work with us or anything else. It's not going to be my message. It's going to be there's some concerns. We're going to work through them. It's nothing that I don't think is we can't.
When we post the agenda tomorrow, it won't be on there. But hopefully Thursday morning, I'll have a draft on your desks that you can take a look at. Not promising, but I'll be in the state's attorney's office this afternoon and get to work on this.
Sounds fine.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Have a good rest of the day.
I shut this like we were done.
All right, we're on to item 6.6. So I'll entertain a motion for item 6.6. Terry and
I'll second.
And Eric seconds that. Okay,
I apologize, but
that's fine. Go ahead. That's all right. So let me get to that. Hold on 2 seconds here. Good luck. Okay, I want this. Nope, I don't want that. I want this. Okay, so, hi, welcome.
You got a quorum?
Not if you walk out.
I'm staying.
I was gonna go before I start. So.
Okay. So the reason why I pulled this is I don't have, relatively speaking, I don't have that many issues with anything. I'm not understanding the board refrigeration situation. And so I have questions, but why don't you first share with me what the whole refrigeration situation is?
The whole refrigeration system, okay. So, we don't know.
You do, she's right there.
Oh, I know she left. Anyways, so in this project, we are increasing the size of the cooler and the freezer areas.
Okay. The physical footprint of it.
The physical footprint of it.
Okay.
length, height, everything. So right now it's about 8 foot tall, we're going to 10 foot tall. And this was the actual design when we first started, was for the rack system. When we were looking at implementing a larger area, we were gonna put 5 storage racks in each area and stuff. It would house, in the cooler, it would have housed 25. And in the freezer, it would have housed 10. So
In the
anyways.
stacked format, I'm sorry, Dr. Readiness, in the stacked format you mean for the freezer?
Yes,
That's
yes,
what you get
they're
on
called
there?
stackables and stuff, and then
Right.
basically we have a lift that would have gone in there, up
Okay.
and down and slide what we need and to do autopsies and things of that nature. Going over the project and looking at the bids and everything in that nature, I felt that, you know what, we can hold off on the stackable aspect of it, but it'd be for the future. But we can still use a gurney system that will still house, I believe 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 10, you know, so we could probably use that right now, and then in the future, if we need to go to that, which we will at some point, implement a stackable unit as we need to and things of that nature. Plus, it also decreased the amount, like around $50,000 by going this route as well. So we've increased it, and then one of the concerns was brought up by Mr. Kunkel as far as we have a unit now that is 10 years old that's using for the capacity that we're using right now. So we're increasing the capacity. So his thought process was to keep using this condenser unit.
yeah.
And just by another unit, they kind of offset what we need as far as tonnage, is what he was calling, as far as housing, you know, you're cooling a bigger area and a bigger freezer area and things of that nature. So that was his thought process. After talking with Wold and things of that nature, I don't think it's probably the best way to go about it, and I'll let Kirsta kind of take over with that.
The current space is a combined cooler freezer. What the design is then to take that entire footprint that they're using for cooling, and with a small portion is I think the freezer right now, that would be one larger cooler space to increase their capacity. And then the space that was a room off to the side of the autopsy room that was used back when they were doing x-rays, it's just kind of an empty space at this point. That will be then a separate freezer space. So they'll have the two now separate units within the existing footprint of the morgue. So each of those units is equipment, so it was not designed by us. We're making sure that the footprint fits and that they have all the space that's needed, but those are being purchased on a GSA contract through a morgue-specific company that designs those systems as a whole package. So they are actually providing what you think of as the big silver box of a cooler and a freezer with the condensing units and the motors and everything that's needed for that. So the question I think was brought up, you have an existing condenser compressor for the existing cooler freezer, and could that be reused? So currently the way we have, or the way we've talked about having the cooler freezer designed, they are redundant systems. That's kind of best practices going forward, because the coroner's office is often pulled into emergency management situations, disaster situations. So redundancy is kind of best practice. That means you have two compressors for each unit. So we'll have 4 total that are serving these 2 units. To reuse what you have would be 1. We would be basically kind of trying to add on to one or the other of those systems. This existing compressor unit to still work in tandem with the second one that was needed. So learning about this yesterday, this question, I actually reached out to MOPEC, which is the company that we've been working with for the equipment for this project. And they are taking it to their technical unit to see if that's even possible. Their initial concern was just that they warranty these as package systems. So if you start to add things on and or take away from their design, they basically said, now we're just giving you a big box and you are taking responsibility for everything else that is happening in there, because it's gonna be a bunch of finger pointing on what happened. You have now hooked up a compressor that I believe we got information from facilities that it's 10 years old and its warranty was 5 years. So it is already out of warranty itself, that unit that's being used for the existing cooler freezer. So that is, I think, the high level concern, is that you'd be putting yourself in a situation where you're spending money for something, and if you have an issue within a year or two, you now have voided your warranty and are spending money on top of it to fix something that the company that installed it is saying, well, you've decided to add pieces onto it. It's no longer what we installed.
Okay, so but let me back up for 2 seconds. Currently, how many bodies are we able to hold in refrigeration and in frozen?
2, 9.
So what's the breakout of?
2 in the freezer.
Freezer.
And 7 in the cooler.
7, cool, okay. And that our compressor and everything is what is running this current system?
Correct.
Okay. And are we having issues, and maybe I can ask facilities this because he's sitting right there, but are we having issues with the current system failing?
The compressor itself?
Any part of it?
As far as I know, no. That would be...
We're not having any issues with the current system? Okay. But we're talking about getting rid of the current system and replacing it with new systems. Is that a true statement?
Correct.
Okay. And in the new system, what's our capacity for frozen and cooled?
As far as bodies?
Yes.
Well, as far as, well, that would be a different thing. It's because if you're talking about, if we're gonna put a stackable thing in there, it's gonna be 35. If we don't, it's going to be 14-ish.
Well, what do I have sitting in front of me? What's on this? What's on this?
Yeah, that's the gurney system is what you're asking is you're looking at. I mean, honestly, we could add another gurney but in the freezer, but you're looking at 3, 6, 9, 10, 14.
I'm looking at I'm looking at bid 25-7892.
List.
I'm looking at the
Yeah.
It's the listing.
Oh, okay.
It's your
Those are all
investment
on the base
summary.
bid. Your design is in the base bid, and that's all there.
Yes.
These are the alternates.
So what's your question again?
So my question is, what am I looking, dollar-wise, what
Okay.
am I looking at? I see the
Gotcha.
picture, but I don't know what that means, equates to dollar-wise here.
I'll let you do that.
So the, if you look at what's under base bid 2 and
Yep.
3,
Yep.
that is the total equipment shipping and installation charges. So that 524 includes the cooler, the freezer, the autopsy table, the gurneys, and we provided the list to Dr. Rain that we got from the installing, the manufacturer that would be providing this. So I believe the cooler itself is $170,000 of that total, and I think the freezer is $90,000. So So it's about, those two units are about half of the overall equipment cost, I believe.
Okay, so base bid 2 and 3,
Mhm.
so assuming that's approved, how many bodies are you then able to freeze and cool?
We would be able to freeze and cool up to 35.
Well, let
With
me,
stackables or?
With this, those are the stackable units. But using the gurney system as we have right now, it would be, as you see on the chart that you guys have,
Right.
would be, I say 14. I mean, I think we got 13
So this
gurneys,
cost includes the gurney systems currently. I think you had mentioned to go to the racking was an additional 20,000, which you didn't think you
50.
needed. Oh, sorry,
but
50,000.
It's an extra 50,000.
Which he didn't think he needed at this time, that he could function with the additional space this would give with gurneys, knowing that the actual space of the freezer and the cooler with the added height will allow for them in the future to get the racking system and then basically almost double what you can do with the gurneys.
So you're, okay, so just so that I'm trying
That's
to
fine.
understand this.
That's okay.
So what I'm looking at for the equipment, base bid 2 and 3, and then I'm assuming alternate 5 is needed because of 2 and 3.
That's the extra generator?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Tom's comfortable with that recommendation that it's not, doesn't have long, our current one doesn't have long life left, so.
We were showing replacement in 2 years for that generator.
Okay.
Based on its age.
Got it.
So it would make sense at this point to replace that as part of the project.
The compressor that has been in question, talking about.
The
No,
generator.
the generator.
No, the
That's
generator.
backup. This is the backup, in case
Oh, I'm
power
sorry.
goes
In
out.
case something
Oh,
power
there you
goes
go,
out.
right, got
Because
it,
this system
Okay.
is larger, the generator as it stands today would not supply enough.
got it.
Correct, I get it, okay.
Sorry.
You can't
missed it.
handle no power there.
So then what you're proposing here is going from 9 to 14. Is that true?
In terms of bodies.
Yes,
Yes,
going from 9 to 14.
correct.
Okay,
As it sits,
okay.
with the probable increase in using a stackable unit sometime in the near future, I would say. I would probably say 5 to 10 years.
What you think will be, at least as of today, another 50?
What's that?
Another 50,000? In today's dollars anyway?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, correct.
So how, and again, this is more of a, what goes on, because I don't know, but, so how often?
And here's kind of the thing too, is that we can move, as you see the layout of the gurneys and stuff. You can take, where the gurneys are, where the back row is of the cooler, where the 2 are. So think of each gurney being replaced with 5 stackable units, okay? And then on the far wall, another stackable units here, so we can increase that. The rows that have the 2 rows together, so you have to use a lift to get in and out, so you have to automatically get rid of those and things of that nature.
Right.
One of the questions that was raised as far as like, could we put a stackable unit in the cooler that we currently have? One, we have a much lower height, number 1, but number 2, we couldn't get the lift in there to move it around, to be able to function it, to get in and out, so to speak. So that's kind of where, where we're looking at and things in that nature, because have been over capacity probably 6 to 8 times since I've been here myself. And, the other thing is that we do have issues with, we don't know when deaths are gonna happen, obviously. It goes in ebbs and flows and things of that nature. And I can tell you that even though that we've gone past our capacity, 6 or 8 times, we've also come close like dozens and dozens of times. And one car accident away from being overflown, or, we have 2 active airports in our county, things of that nature that obvious, things can happen. And we don't, I don't think it's good practice to be having to wait, having a natural disaster is one thing, but just normal, everyday deaths that happen in our county and when they happen, I think it was prudent at this time. I mean, this building's been here since 1986, and things of that nature. And I think this is being built not only for the now, but for the future as well, the next 40 or 50 years as well, to be able to do that. Other corners that I talk to that have newer facilities, Kane County, they have a newer facility. They can house up to about 100, and they don't use that, all of that space and things of that nature. Sangamon County just redid theirs, and they can house about 65. I know that I don't think that we need to be, that large, and especially in my thought process too is that if you're going to need a bigger space after this, you're going to need a bigger building, is the issue.
Right.
So,
you're theoretically landlocked, can't quite.
yeah, but I think we can use the space prudently and in the best interest of everybody going forward and things of that nature. I think this is definitely the best outcome that I think that we could have for sure. And I think it's not only responsible for the office, but I also think it's responsible for the taxpayers as well, as far as money goes as well.
So when you reach over 9, because that's what you're saying your capacity is now,
right?
What happens when you're over 9?
Usually what we have to do is double up girdings, which isn't really the best way to do it, and things of that nature. I have reached out to other funeral homes that we can possibly use their funeral home when we have an overcapacity, because they have smaller coolers and things of that nature. So we also have an agreement with funeral homes and stuff like that. If we do have a natural disaster of some sort where we could actually, house people if need be and things of that nature.
So is it a situation, and it's kind of going off a little bit, but
sure,
we have IGAs with, especially in the sheriff's department, IGAs with other entities, so if other morgues, theoretically Kane County or Lake County, had space.
Yeah, and we, during this process, we're going to be using Kane County's facilities for the time that we have to, be down and things of that nature. Is it going to be a hassle? Yeah, but we'll make it work, and things of that nature. We do have written agreements through our association as far as if there is a natural disaster in the state where other coroners and we go and help any way we can and things of that nature. Obviously, if we have a natural disaster of some sort, depending upon the size and things like that, yes, we can use Kane County's facilities. We can use any of the Collar County units, even Winnebago as well. So, and vice versa.
So my last question is what would be the reason why we would get rid of the current 9? I'm not saying that we shouldn't get the you know, theoretically, the new system also as a backup, but why would we get rid of the 9 if we're not really having functionality issues with it?
Functionality, I'm confused on what you're asking.
So, and that's why I asked originally, if the system is currently working and we haven't had maintenance issues with the current system.
Are you talking about the condenser?
No, I'm talking about the whole thing.
Okay.
So why would we prematurely get rid of it? Why wouldn't we have that in addition to your other 14 system that you have? Why wouldn't we have both, I guess?
One replaces the other. So the current space where you can see the 10 gurneys
So
on
the freezer and the cooler, right, as you see it right here.
Yep.
This is not the way it is right now in the facility, in the office, in the morgue. So the freezer actually is right here where these 3 gurneys are in the cooler against the wall.
Yep.
That's actually the freezer. Where the freezer is actually empty space. It's storage right now.
So where's the freezer on this? I can't, you've got,
If
it's
you
in the
see
current
in the cooler here,
yeah,
you see these 3 gurneys here on the
Yep.
back wall?
back wall.
That's
Oh,
where the freezer is,
the existing.
at the existing,
Okay.
as we speak. And to get to that, you have to go into this room here where the new freezer would be,
Gotcha.
to get there.
They're reconfiguring the space.
And then basically, what you see, take those 3 out,
Yeah.
that would be the cooler.
Okay.
So basically, those 7 right there is the cooler right there.
So you're saying we couldn't keep what we currently have and still fit it into your reconfigured space?
Correct. Yeah, the freeze, we're not taking the freezer out and just replacing the freezer. We're actually moving everything and making it a bigger space.
And a bigger freezer, right?
Bigger freezer, bigger cooler.
Well, you're getting rid of the old freezer and purchasing a new one, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But it's not in this room as we speak, as it is right here.
Okay.
It's not, we're not saying that this is the freezer. We're taking it out and putting a new freezer in. We're not doing that. Does that make sense?
No, now you just confused me.
I thought it made sense, and then I got confused.
So there is the larger space that says cooler on the new plan.
Yes.
That is.
See right here, this part right here, just the cooler.
Yeah, the one that
That
has
is actually
10 gurneys in
housing the
it.
cooler and the freezer as we speak.
Okay.
So when that gets removed.
So when that,
space will
that
be
space
the
gets-
cooler only. So it
Yes.
expands the space for the cooler into that entire space. And then the new freezer moves into an empty storage room that
Got
we're
it.
able to repurpose.
So are the systems not controllable that you can dictate whether it's a cooler or a freezer?
no.
Well, can one compressor be used for both a freezer?
I mean,
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the compressors,
no, I'm talking, so,
just the space?
He's saying, can you turn down the thermostat on the cooler?
Yeah,
and
pretty
make it a
much.
freezer.
Well,
yeah,
that's what I just said, yes.
Okay. The cooler, so this is, so there's certain things. The cooler is used pre-autopsy. You don't put people in a freezer pre-autopsy, okay? Just so you know.
yeah.
I was gonna ask that question.
So,
It's kind of hard to look at people when they're frozen.
yeah, well, it's,
But there's probably more
becomes
to
a
it than
hard,
that.
you can't do it. You can't have autopsy, so. But anyways, that being said, is that now we've had to, when we've been over capacity and things of that nature, which, it is what it is, but, once we do the autopsy, sometimes we can move them to the freezer. However, if we move them to the freezer, the funeral home can't embalm them. So that becomes another issue, and things of that nature. Another issue that we're seeing just, that I wanted to bring up too, is that we are having more and more over the past probably, I'd probably say year or two, 18 months, is that we're having more and more deaths that they don't have family members or next of kin or somebody to take over the funeral arrangements. So now we have to bring them back and try and do an investigation to try and find people to take over funeral arrangements if possible. Whether it be a distant cousin, aunt, uncle, things of that nature. So we are starting to see more and more of that.
I don't mean to be rude, but I need to call the vote or I'm gonna leave and we won't have quorum.
Okay.
You got a quick question, Karen?
I did, I just real quickly, in terms, because I think, I did, and yes, I know, you need to go, Terry, so just real quickly, in terms of the redundancy, the current compressor does not provide that redundancy that you guys are saying is needed in as far as like the emergency, kind of that backup.
The current system does not, yeah, it's.
So then we don't currently have that, but this would have
Yes.
that correct. Okay, that was my only question.
Okay, well, I can finish asking my questions at the committee hall, I guess.
Okay, that's fine. Or give me a call.
Yeah,
We can,
Can we vote?
yeah,
we haven't done our consent. Oh, no, yes, we did.
no, we did. We still have other stuff, but that's all right.
We have 7.1 to vote on also.
Yep. Okay, well, we'll go to vote then all right, so.
And just to clarify real quick, as far as the alternates, the two alternates that we're asking for is one is a security reason up front. We don't really have much of security up there, and we do deal with uneasy people at times because of death. The other thing is the tile will be in the morgue only. It's be on the wall. It's more of an antimicrobial thing. We deal with people that have TB, HIV, hepatitis, all types of infectious diseases and things of that nature. It helps with that as well. So, just so that you guys know quickly going forward. Do you have any questions on that?
But I thought those were taken out though, correct?
The two, yes, that's why.
The resolution as drafted does not include those two alternates.
Okay, all right, okay, that's fine.
As
So that's,
approved by Administrative Services did not include those.
okay, so that's what we're voting on though. Okay, does everyone understand? Okay,
So they're not included.
No.
correct. Okay, we'll go to vote then. Eric?
Yes.
Brian? Oh, he's not here. Carolyn?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, motion carries.
Okay.
So you're probably gonna get more questions at the committee
That's
level,
fine.
but that's all right.
7.1.
Can we just call for a vote? Oh, no, did we just do that?
Yeah, we just did.
Yeah, we gotta do 7.1
We have to do
still.
7.1.
7.1 passed Administrative Services unanimously.
No, we didn't.
Okay. Can you stick around for 7.1?
7.1.
That's the new contract with.
Oh, yes, I'm a yes.
Okay. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve item 7.1.
I'll make the motion.
Eric and Terry, you want to second that?
Yes.
Okay. We'll go to vote on that one. Terry?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
And myself, yes?
It's just a stupid
Okay,
one.
motion carries.
You don't need to.
I don't know how to do it otherwise.
Get some updates. even-
Karen can do a little update. I was gonna ask Melissa to do an update on a health grant, but she can do that at Cal.
Okay.
We're losing 600.
I mean, we can't take any votes, but we can sit around and listen after you lose quorum.
I need to make a comment as I'm walking out the
Yeah.
door. I serve on the Workforce Development Board in Kane County for Kane, DeKalb, Kendall, and Grundy counties. And I've served on this board from 2017 to date. And sometimes there are what I would call, God moments where you see something that you haven't seen before. And just dealing with the county board chair and who was acting as the administrator. We are very, very, very blessed with who we have as an administrator in this county and with our chair. And I'm very thankful. That board has managed to be put on the state list as the only workforce development board in the state of Illinois who can't get their bills paid because nobody writes the checks. That's just one of the many can't staff, can't execute, and it just really opened my eyes as to what we have.
So, thank you.
So I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn, and then I'm gonna let you report out after we adjourn, okay? So, motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, so we're
You still have
adjourned.
a majority of a quorum.
Huh?
You still have a majority of a,
It doesn't, we don't have a quorum though, that's the problem.
you know, but you shouldn't be talking about
Anything?
county business, should you?
We're not talking about it, she's gonna give a report.
You want the recording stopped?
Yeah, you can record, you can stop